So I got Logic Pro X right here. If you forgot what it looked like, little platinum record. It's pretty amazing. If you try hard enough with Logic, you also might have a platinum record. You know what I'm saying? So we'll fire this up, and worth mentioning. Ooh, you know what I should do? I actually want to cover a few things. I'm going to quit. That sounds kind of weird, but I'm ejecting this hard drive, and I want to show you. We'll talk about the sound library initially. I know some of you know this, some of you are new. So what I'm going to do is fire up Logic without my external drive, and we should talk about this message. The reason I'm like, hey, let's cover it, because we have 3 hours and we'll take a couple short breaks, but also I've received a few messages during this break about this same thing. And I'm like, oh, the thing that I covered in first cycle, but some people never did it. And now they're like, oh, I have free time. Let's mess around with Logic. So the idea is when you first download Logic from the App Store, you get the basic dang old thing. You're not getting every single preset, every Apple loop. You're getting just very essential things. Now, the idea is get the initial version, and then you could download everything to your laptop. If you have put nothing else on your laptop, you might be able to fit the entire sound library, but it's approximately 70 gigs. So the idea here, don't do that. You would want to put your external, the sound library, you would want to migrate it to an external drive of some sort. Now, this is not bragging, but I purchased, this is let me see if you can see that. That's 128 gig. Literally, it's just like a little USB dongle. So I have the entire library plus some audio files and stuff like that. And I could this is usually on my keychain, but since I'm at home most often, I just took it off. But I'll just pop that in anytime I need to use Logic, and it's very, very convenient. Now, if I have the sound library on an external drive and you launch Logic without that drive, you will always get this message. So it's going to give you a few options. Do not reset. That would literally reset the location. I did this well, I don't want to say accidentally. I was experimenting when they first released this option, and I clicked it, lost everything. I had to delete the files off the external, and then I had to re-download everything. So use this one wisely. I can choose to ignore. Let's say that I just wanted to record this microphone going in. Maybe I'm recording a little sketch for a song and I don't need the library. Just ignore it. You can still use Logic, but you'll be lacking all of your presets and loops. Retry is what you would typically click. Now, before you even click retry, what I could do is just connect the drive. Pardon my reach. And as soon as the drive pops up, you'll see it somewhere down here. It automatically senses it, and I can now choose ignore or retry, and I just choose retry. 10.4.8, current version of Logic, and here we go. We are not going to use anything over here, but quick little tour. Obviously, we're going to, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but today we'll do a new project. Anything recent will be in your recent little section here. Demo projects, you always have a Beck, the artist Beck, just a little demo there. If you're obviously bored or you don't have any instruments, you can mess around with that. Also, we have project templates. Some of you may have experimented with these, but we're not going to use them. I can give you a quick example, I guess, of what a hip-hop template would look like. It's going to be a bunch of pre-configured tracks, but there's no actual recording within all of these different tracks. This one will start off with the drummer, so I'll just solo this. Ooh, real quick. This should automatically show up, but I need to check my audio preferences. Zoom audio device. So if I press play and I'll turn down the main output. So at this point, you're like, heck yeah. Now you can start recording other things. Now, I'm not actually going to record anything in here, but clearly these tracks already exist. And they already have pre-configured channel strips where you could just record melodies, bass lines, chord changes. But I like to always start personally from scratch. So I'm going to do Option Command W. I should probably, well, I think most people will figure this out. But you can close the project here. I just use the quick key of Option Command W, and I will not save. So Command N, and all I'm going to do, you can make your own templates. On this particular system, I do not have any templates. On my other Logic setup, I do have some templates for when I record external gear, but this is just the school laptop, and I have not created any templates. So we're going to start with the brand new project, empty project, and we'll just double click, or you can choose right here. And one more detail, let's say that you're opening a session that is not recent. It's subtle, but right down here, open existing project. Everybody cool with the general layout there? Coolio. So we're going to fire up an empty project. Now, right off the bat, if you guys have a good memory, you'll be like, I think I've heard these words before, but I'm recapping critical things about Logic. If it's been a while since you've had me in First Cycle, some of this will be a little repetitive, but I think it's good to hear. That sounds very egotistical, but this is for you, not me. As soon as you create an empty session, you get this prompt to make a new track. This shows you one thing about Logic. You have to have an active track in the software, very much like Ableton, very much unlike Pro Tools. So right off the bat, let's say you're like, I don't know what I want to do. Just make a track and then you can delete it once you have other tracks created, but you definitely have to start somewhere. Before we make tracks, let's go through just the general theme. I'm actually going to start with Software Instrument, so I'll cover that one last. External MIDI. Do you guys have any recollection of what the external MIDI track, the primary function, would be? Any memories of that one? No? Okay. Well, what if I had, currently I'm in the living room. I don't have any synths out here. But if I have an external synthesizer or a sound module, what I would be able to do is run MIDI information from Logic out of my interface into the physical piece of gear. So you're going to be using this anytime you're working with external gear that's not inside of Logic using the MIDI protocol. We're not going to do that one today because even if I did set it up, you wouldn't have a visual on that, so my apologies. Audio. Let's say that I wanted to record the sound of my voice. Let's say I wanted to record hand claps with the microphone. Let's say I have an acoustic guitar and a microphone. You can record any outside source as far as sound producing, generator of any sort. You can record this into Logic as an audio file. And the last two, I usually don't cover in class that much. We're not going to focus on them, but I'll just give you a couple minutes summary. If I plugged in a guitar or a bass into my interface, I can use Logic's amplifier simulation algorithms. So if I have a Stratocaster or anything, Les Paul, doesn't matter, but I could run it through various amp simulators and various guitar pedal emulations. And what I could do is get a clean guitar right here on my lap, sounding like it was running through amps and effects, even though in this room there are no amps and effects. So if you guys try this out and you get stuck on anything, it's actually not complex. You know what? Let's just make one so you can get the basic idea. Right off the bat, you get kind of the general guitar categories over here, and you can literally just experiment. You're not going to hurt anything, so you would put your track into input. Maybe you could record probably a simpler way. Instead of playing and then switching and then playing and then switching, you could just record a 1, 2, or a 4-bar loop, and once you have some audio recorded, you could start scrolling through these various presets. And as you notice, I'll go further with the library versus the inspector, but as you notice, the channel strip will update when I click on any of these. Are we all cool with that idea? So any guitar players in the house that have never used this, try it out in the next couple of days and then shoot me a message if you are stuck on anything. So what I'm going to do is just delete that track. That was a quick little verbal summary. I'll just click on the actual track itself and press delete. And then boom, because we have to have one active track or more, we get the same prompt. Now the drummer track, this is not like, oh, I play drums, I'm gonna play some drums into it's not for recording audio from a drum kit. This is a virtual drummer. You could think of it as AI, like there's different categories and different feels. I'll give you a quick example of that, and then I'll show you, actually, I'm kind of improvising, by the way. I usually don't cover this stuff, but I'll show you that you could take a basic drum groove from one of the virtual drummers. You can convert that into MIDI and then use it to trigger drum machines. So let's say you're not really good at programming drums. You could use that as a starting rhythm to build up a composition if you're lacking in the rhythmic department. So let's actually start with something like that. Worth mentioning the details. We have a disclosure triangle here. For most, actually for all of these, we have details. The very first time you use Logic, this might be closed, but just remember you can open that up and get more details. So we'll go drummer again, and then keep this in mind. You don't have, you could start with rock or alternative, and you can always switch it later. I I don't know. I think we're going to go R&B initially. That's just kind of how I'm feeling right now. R&B and then Open Library. As soon as we create this track, Open Library over here will actually update to show us all possibilities for the drummer track. So I'll walk you through the library as soon as we create this track. And for standard routing, output 1, 2, unless you have an elaborate interface and an elaborate setup with maybe a console, you're just going to be using the main output, which is always 1 and 2. Right here, you always have access to your audio device, and I already checked that, but let's say I did not. You can always click on this, boom, and it will take you right to your audio preferences, where you can configure your interface right here, input, output device. If you make any changes, I'm doing this as an example, you must apply changes, otherwise it will revert back to the original. So I'll go right back to Zoom audio device, apply change, and we're good to go. So we'll just experiment with the drummer track for maybe 5 minutes, then I'll show you, hey, let's get into electronic drums using some of the same patterns and rhythms. Now, real quick, do you guys remember this one? I'm making a drummer track up here, R&B genre, but I chose Open Library. That is this section over here. Some people use the library daily, other people never use it. It's just good to know the general vibe. Now I did choose, and by the way, based on the drummer track, this is different. We have like the main selection up here, and then we have some various different drum kits that we can choose. If I was on a different type of track, the library contents would not appear as they appear now. So please notice that I started with R&B, and then I have a few different personalities to choose from. I'm just going to choose Rose, and you can see right up here the general idea when they program that. And very much worth mentioning, I did not choose to record this in any way, shape, or form. This does not look like audio or MIDI. When you choose, do you guys see if I choose different drummers, I will get different drummer patterns over here. So that's kind of just following the general vibes described up here. So if I press play, and I'm just going to turn my stereo output down a little bit. Another thing worth mentioning here, this is subtle, but some people would not pick up on this. The default tempo is 120 for Logic, but when I chose a drummer track in an R&B Rose, it's actually modifying the tempo right off the bat. Is everybody cool? Kind of based on the genre and the feel. But I could always, Zoom is always right in the way. I could always speed this up or slow it down later, but we'll just keep it for 75 initially. So I'll press play. Oops, click back in Logic. So again, I didn't make that. That's just kind of a preset starting point. And let's say that I was happy with that as a starting point. Maybe not even for a final song. Maybe I'm a keyboard player or a bass player and I just need a reference that's a little more exciting than a click. That's half the reason I would recommend using the drummer track. Do you guys get the idea? Some people don't want to follow just a very monotonous click track. So this might give you a little bit more flavor to practice with. But let's say I start with this and I'm totally happy with the R&B Rose vibes. Actually, before you switch though, you can switch the drum kit itself. I'll go Scientific Method. It'll be the same pattern, roots. It's the same exact pattern, but we can get different sounds out of the drum kit. So I'll go Portland because Portlandia, might as well. But keep in mind, as you choose your different drum kits here, you will get slightly different layouts in the inspector. So I'll go back here, see how some things are bypassed. Some of these will have more or less different plugins. So keep that in mind. You're not set in stone. You could always bypass stuff or add stuff in. We'll cover the inspector a little bit more detail when we get to the MIDI tracks. Now let's maybe go for a couple more minutes of the drummer function. Right now, we just have this 8 bars, right? So 1 to 9, we got 8 bars. But down below, right here, we can modify the feel of the pattern. So I have simple and loud right now. Let me, what I'm going to do is zoom in on this. I'm just dragging this down. You could also select the track and use Command and the arrow keys. And traditionally, if I was looking at this and I'm not used to Logic, I'm like, is this the left and this the right? It appears as if it's a stereo file. It is playing back in stereo, but how it's displayed is kicks and snares down here. and then additional percussion up here. So hi-hats, shakers, things like that. So it doesn't look exactly symmetrical, but that's totally fine. The
Can
reason
you
that
change the panning on that? I'm sorry.
you can go in and say, I want this sound to go over here. You can modify the settings, but right now, well, I'm not quite there, but I'll show you how I could do that. Is everybody okay with the inspector though? I'm sorry, the library. Because if we're good there, what I'm going to do is close that out. I can click on this button up here. Let me actually, I don't want to go full screen because I like seeing this stuff up here, but you can click on this icon or you can press Y for library. And what does that give us? It gives us much more, obviously, screen real estate. I can zoom in a little bit further. I'm using command and arrow keys. Also, one that's pretty subtle. Let me zoom out. So I'm trying to cover a bunch of stuff in Logic, not just drummer. But if you select any region just by clicking on it, you can press Z and it will zoom in full screen based on however your screen is laid out. And if you press Z again, it will go back to its original. So that's pretty useful. Now, the reason why I wanted to zoom in here, if I play and then move this XY grid, you will see things update. So I'm going to go for, let's go a little bit more complex, but maybe in the middle as far as volume. It takes a little time to update, but you'll see the patterns will change. Let's go complex and loud. Let's go soft and simple. As soon as you let go, it will update. Do you guys, everybody feeling okay? Let's say I just want to get a quick feel and the preset is loud and complex. It's like, just drag it around. You're not going to hurt anything. Another thing down here, do you guys see flow? New soul, old school, quiet storm. This will actually update it's not going to change the sound of the drum kit, but the patterns will be a little bit different as well. So this is a really useful thing. Again, if you're not a drummer, but you want to practice, or if I'm a producer, but I don't have access to a drummer, at least you can get started with some organic, natural drum sounds. If you wanted to get a little bit busier, you have this section over here. So do you guys see, I can actually mute things. So that's kind of an interesting style of manipulation. There's no mute button, but if I don't want toms, I just click on them. Yellow or gold would be active, and then gray is inactive. So if I click on all this stuff, it's going to be probably a little bit busier. That's strange. I'm not an expert on this, but it's not allowing me to have both of those. Strange, but you can definitely modify. It's like, oh, I want a shaker or a maraca for my percussion. Do you guys see you can kind of modify? And with each of these sliders, you can change the overall feel. So if you wanted like simpler percussion or more complex and busier percussion, it depends on what instruments you have, but this is just modifiers. Do you guys see this right here? If I crank the hi-hat all the way up, you'll get different feels. So I'm not going to go through every possible combination. I'm just giving you a general overview. You can have more or less fills. So if you crank that up, you're going to have fills every bar or two. Okay, let's go from the beginning. This was a new one that popped up. And then we'll turn it all the way down. Notice there's nothing now. You can also apply swing in 8th or 16th note, intervals, or I don't know, not finding the word right now, but yeah, you can modify swing. Details. Do you guys see the details button here? So this gives you the ability, it's like, well, I want to push or pull, or I want to be completely neutral. Ghost notes, you can add more or less. And hi-hat, you can kind of change the automatic thing here. You could say I want to favor open versus close, but you have to deselect automatic there. So I'm not going for any particular result here. I just wanted to introduce this because to my knowledge, this is never covered in class. I don't have time in first cycle. Maybe in second or third, it's briefly mentioned, but I just wanted to give you guys a nice little intro. And again, this could just be a starting point, and I could then convert the pattern into MIDI. This is not MIDI yet, but I could use that for a basis for building an electronic drum groove, which is kind of a cool idea. Someone asked about panning. I can't remember who. Yeah? Who is that? I don't see your face. Well, I see your face, but I can't remember. Who are you? Who? Patrick. There you go, Patrick. Not an expert on this, but if we open up, so let me slow down. The coffee's flowing. The track up here has the performance, but over here we have the inspector, which has our channel strip. So if I wanted to modify the drum kit or the EQ or the compressor, I would have to open these up over here. This is just general track controls like mute and solo. Over here, though, we have access to all the actual devices, if you want to use that word. So if I click here, I should be able to, I don't use this all that much, I'll be real honest. I think we can pan in here. I cannot resize this. Do you see shaker gain here? So you can increase or decrease, but maybe we don't have panning options. I'll be real honest, I'm not sure.
Actually, I think you do.
It has to be multi-output though. That's the only way that I know. Do you know if I can modify it without being multi-output?
I thought, yeah, you know where where the
Oh, here we go.
scissor icon and stuff is, and
Up here?
yeah.
Well, we're already in the editor. The scissor is the editor down here.
Oh no, not scissor. Two over to the left.
To the
Like your
left?
button, not button. I thought you were able to. Maybe not.
Nope.
Okay.
I know for a fact, excuse me, I know one option that I don't want to sound arrogant, but if you just choose a drum kit, if you're just like, okay, let's get started, but you didn't have a multi-output setup, I don't think you would have dedicated pan. Let me just try switching something real quick. Let me actually see what drum kit this is, the Portland kit, and check this out. Instead of drum kit designer stereo, multi-output. The irony of this is I was going to show you with Ultrabeat, but if I go multi-output, it's going to be one device, but each different element can be fed to multiple outputs. So I could have kick on one track, snare on the other, hi-hat on another, and then I have EQ, compression, panning, level. I have all the controls per element. Now, honestly, I didn't plan on showing you with this because I'm not super hip to it, but we should be able to. Let me see here. Zoom. Can I move this permanently? Yes.
Oh, I think I know the answer. I think I got it. There is in the library there is a bunch of drum sets that are pretty much the same thing, but it's called like Drum Set Plus or something. And I
Drum
think
Set
that has like a
Plus.
multi-track where you can edit the snare bottom, snare top. I think.
But specifically in the library?
Yeah.
I don't see it. Refresh. I'm running out of steam here. I don't see, maybe producer kit? I don't see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it might have been producer kits. Yeah,
We're going,
the one
yeah, with the
pluses.
pluses. Let's go 60 soul. Okay, we don't need EQ right off the bat, but let's open up the actual, this here. Why is that not opening? Interesting. Oh, I'm getting lost in the sauce here.
Okay,
Let's go back to our editor.
I got you. On that icon on the picture of the drum set.
Ah, here we go. Yep. It's like a track stack. So, and probably it's going to show up in the mixer as well. Yep. Look at that. Would you look at that? Andy coming through in the clutch. So if you wanted, I know for a fact the multi-output option, that's not specifically for the drummer track, but within the drummer track, you have to use, as Andrew discovered, the producer kits, and the ones with the pluses here will also, they'll have the multiple outputs. So now if I play this pattern, you can see the various elements here, and I can pan. It's like, okay, let's do our hi-hat over here. And it's actually, if you notice, it's already auto-panned, like roughly where it would be. So you can always go in and modify it, put a EQ on the snare, distortion on the kick, whatever you want. So normally I don't cover too much of the drum track, so thank you for being patient on that little hiccup. But I just wanted you guys to feel comfortable where after this, you could at least start experimenting with it. We are going to cover track stacks, by the way, but not using this particular method. But I just wanted to cover, again, just the intro to drum track, or drummer track. Now, let's say that you are not good at programming drums. You start with this, and you're like, this feels good, but you want to use synthetic sounds. What you could do is right-click, convert on the region itself, and then convert drummer to MIDI region. Boom. You guys all see that? So instead of yellow, that's the default color. Now we get a green MIDI performance. And all I would have to do is now switch out my instrument, or alternately, I could leave this and I could make a new track and layer it. So I want you guys to definitely consider layering percussion. Worth mentioning, we're not going to spend all day on drums. I want to be very clear there, but we'll start with the drum groove and then we'll add some melodic and other elements. But let me show you, we could do, I'm thinking, We already did drum kit designer. We'll go for Ultra Beat. Now, Ultra Beat features the same possible scenario where if I want the kicks and the snares separate, I can go multi-output. I'll show you how you could set that up. We don't really need the library for this one. I'm going to show you how to use just the inspector and from the plugin. But you could, if you wanted to open up a bunch of presets, there you go. I'll cover the library a little more detail when we get to software synths. Multi-timbral, not required today. I'm just using one channel of MIDI for the drums. And over here, always output 1, 2, same audio device. And we're just making one track. So create. This pops up here, but before we even do anything, what I'm going to do is mute this one. So I'm just clicking mute. And by the way, you could click on the track and mute down here. That's a little bit strange, but it's a little quicker right there. And what I'm going to do is just option, click, and drag. Did you guys all see that? Here, let me undo. Holding option, clicking, dragging. And then I have the same exact region, but this top one is muted now. If I press play, pretty cool drum kit. The initial setting is just like sine waves for whatever reason. I don't know why they do that. But if I click on this drop down here, manual, I will have a bunch of different drum kits available as long as I downloaded the drums from the sound library, which I did not mention. I'm a bad person. Sound library. You could download Essential or all available sounds. You could also go open Sound Library Manager. Let's say you just want drums. So you can go to your Sound Library Manager. You can pick and choose whatever you want. For example, I could choose just drums and percussion, click install, and you will get only those sounds. Whatever sounds you have on your system, I would then go back to the same exact location and relocate the sound library. Once you connect your external hard drive, it will show up and you would simply click on it and then relocate. I already have that done, so that would be redundant and I can't even choose this. But if you guys get stuck on that, shoot me a quick message and I can walk you through email or through Zoom. If you really get stuck, I can help you out with that. Now, going back to the idea, I've already downloaded everything. I will click on manual and I have drum kits just to start with. Let's say that you only wanted kicks or only wanted snares or something. You can go for different banks of sounds, but I'm going for an entire drum kit, which will be drum kits, and I have many choices here. I don't know. I'm kind of funk boogie kit. I'm just picking random stuff today. I have no notion of what's going to happen here, so we might get a little funky today. Now, the only downside of this one is that our snare is actually a rim shot. Did you guys notice that? Instead of the snare. So what do you guys think I might be able to do to modify that behavior? Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. You don't have to go through the plugin. What could I do with the MIDI maybe? We can edit just the snare notes. So what I'm doing, I should slow down. If you just double click, that will open up the piano roll down here, but it's a little tricky. You would have to expand it to see the majority of it. You can also select the region and press P for piano roll or E for editor, or you can click on the scissors. So as you can see, there's usually 2 to 4 ways of doing the same thing. It's a matter of learning whatever one works the best and just going with the flow. I personally prefer full screen when I'm editing, unless I have a large monitor. This is a little bit tricky for me. It's doable, but if it's a detailed edit, I don't really want to, strain my eyes. So what I like to do is hold Option and double click anywhere in the region. We'll get full screen. Another approach would be Window, Open Piano Roll, or you can use the quick key of Command 4. Now, one thing that's very different here is that because we're on a drum track, normally the piano roll would not have this in here. It would just be C1, C2, it would have all the notes over here. But this is very useful because I'm like, oh, the rim shot, actually I want to be a snare. I can click on rim shot. Let me zoom in so you can see. You guys can tell, like when I highlight a note, it's highlighted, right? So if I click on O2 rim shot, boom, it will highlight all instances of the same note throughout this entire region. I wouldn't have to click and drag. It's a little bit more efficient to do this. If you wanted to select, let's say I only wanted to select a handful of notes, but not just the rim, I could just select it, click and drag. But if I want every instance of something, it's much easier over here. So rim, what do I do now? I just move it up to snare. Are you guys cool with that idea? Does anybody know how to do this? I'm not dragging. I don't have my mouse right now. It's just option up and down. So let's try snare first. By the way, that high pitch thing, that's probably a sample, and I'm going to change that. But if I wanted to switch to the clap, it's just option up. Are we all feeling cool? You could definitely benefit from editing here. Instead of C1, it's like, oh, there's the kick drum. So that makes your life a little bit easier. One thing that I did mention, you guys hear that high-pitched whiny sound? The pattern that we started with had this, and it's actually triggering synth stab, but it goes up in... So I could actually take these, and I could like make a melody out of it, but I don't want to do a melody within the drum track. It's kind of a weird thought to me. So we could just put this on, I don't know, close hi-hat or zaps. I think we need an off-time cowbell throughout this entire performance. No.
Mo cowbell.
Mo money. Mo cowbells. Mo Obar. Mobar. I couldn't resist.
Yep.
Check
hey,
this
while
out.
you're on, can I ask you a question? Right I know you busy. Are.
I'm busy.
I'm interrupting.
Go. I'm just being a jerk. No, shoot. What you got?
So you did the option up and down arrow. What's the one to go up and down an octave?
That would be shift option. Some would say shoption.
Shoption.
I was going to actually save that for making a melody or a bass line, because that usually with drums, like if I started on, mid tom, it's not very common to be like, yep, let's go up an octave, because it's not melodically. It's just we have samples mapped, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, it's option up and down, and then shift option up and down for octaves. Coolio. Let's try
Thank
Kabasa.
You.
Yeah, no worries, man. And I was just joking. If some of you guys don't remember, sarcasm, please feel free to speak up if you have any questions or comments. Now, Kabasa was programmed over and over. Maybe I'm like, that's cool. Maybe I want to switch it up. You can get very busy. I can't go. This is actually different than what I expected with the drum track itself. I'm actually surprised. There's a lot more options. Do you guys see if you right click, you're going to have a lot of possibilities. You could nudge things earlier or later. Trim notes, force legato. There's all sorts of things that, and some of these would not be specifically for drums. I want to be clear there, but like if you wanted all of your notes to have, there's no overlap and no silence, you can use legato. But I'm just throwing out there, instead of having to manually program, Logic gives you a right click option, and you have a lot of different possible ways of modifying the behavior. I was actually looking for something slightly different, but it's going to be in functions, MIDI transform. Usually I would get to this with not drum stuff specifically, but it's a good example. Can we all tell that these are all different colors? That leads us to a concept of velocity. So when you got a drummer track that was a human being playing the drums, and then you take it to a drum machine track, it's still going to retain the dynamics and the velocity of that performance, which can be very helpful. But what you could do is you could select any or all notes, and you could radically transform things like velocity or things like pitch. MIDI transform is something I never get to, and I'm almost thinking this might be a bit much to start with, but I don't know. Let's just do it. Let's say that I wanted everything to be the same velocity. Let's say I programmed it in manually with the controller, and it was all over the place. I could select any notes and be like, yep, velocity fixed at 100. Select and operate. Let me move this so you can see at least some of the notes. Do you see how actually all of my notes, I didn't realize all were selected. Every single note is now 100. Command Z, undo. I can also choose the different presets from this dropdown. So instead of going back to functions, MIDI transform, I can just access the various functions here. What I'll do is let's do, I don't know, half speed or double speed. You guys okay? So we'll go half speed on the selected notes. I'm not getting into customization of this. I'm just introducing MIDI transform generically. So just wanted to cover that. Select and operate. Ooh, how is it that all notes are, okay, select only. Operate only. That's what I was looking for because it was actually selecting all of them. Did you guys see Command Z and then operate only? It's changing the actual, it's having the speed of that. So maybe that's a little more appropriate for what I'm going for. Or you could even double time. Let's get crazy, okay? Double speed, operate, and let's do it again because we're crazy. So if you showed up to make trap hi-hats, you showed up to the right place today. Is everybody okay with the idea, though, that I can't cover all of this, but when we get to making a melody, I'll come back and I'll show you kind of a cool trick. You could record the most basic, not even good melody. You could randomize everything about it, and then you can quantize it to a scale, and you'll get auto melodies, like without even playing anything. Well, you'd still have to put the notes in, but I'll show you a little bit more here later. The last one, though, is humanize. That's going to shift the timing and the velocity ever so slightly so it's not perfectly on the grid. Are we all cool just generically? This will give us light to moderate to extreme randomization. Let's select all of them. Everybody okay? And the position, let's randomize, I don't know. Well, let's go a little more subtle. So we'll click on the 10 ticks and we'll just, ooh, it's still doing the full one. I actually do not use this all that much, but let's just try 16. Select and operate. That, could you guys all see? That pretty much messed up the entire pattern. Let me undo. I definitely don't want to go that far. Let me back this way off. So we'll go back to 1, and then if I click and drag this up a little bit, and then let's go length a little bit different and the velocity randomize as well. Now I can't, here, can you guys see at least half that pattern there? So I'll select and operate. See, it's gonna, I changed the values enough where it would be noticeable. That does not sound good. So basically don't ever use this function.
That's
I'm
the
just
future
kidding.
of music.
You actually,
Future.
you can get cool results if you keep this really mellow.
Get some glitchy
That's
stuff
for a
going on.
beginner.
Well, how about this? If you wanted glitchy, weird stuff, but you don't know how to program it, you could use humanize or some other function. But I just wanted to introduce the idea. Before we get into editing of notes and whatnot, it's like, hey, you can radically transform your MIDI recordings with all these functions, which will probably keep the summary right there for now. Let's say that we're happy relatively with this, but I want to turn down the Kabasa, all right? Kabasa. So I could open up Ultrabeat, and again, this is the inspector. You can see Ultrabeat chilling right here, and if I click in the middle, that will show or hide. And then you can press Y. Nope, I forget the damn button. Sorry, I shouldn't curse on the damn thing. Does anybody know the button to show and hide? Oh, it's V. V as in victory. That will work to show and hide the selected tracks plugin, unless you have the keyboard open, which we'll cover shortly. If I press V, that's changing velocity. So as long as this is closed, V will open and close. All right. Do you guys notice this right here? We lost some Kabasa. We'll fix that for sure. But going back to the idea of multi-output, if I press play right now, everything's on one track and it's clipping. Let me turn off the click, by the way. Metronome right up there. What I could do is actually assign any element of this particular drum kit to a different output. It's subtle, but if you guys see right here, output, it says out, and everything's going sub 1. I'm going to press Command 2, and you will see the mixer appear up here. You can also click on the little mixer icon, but that will show and hide down here. I'm going to do the floating window so you can see a little bit better, I think. How many tracks do we have? We have 2 drum tracks. We have stereo out and the master of the session. What we're going to do on this particular track, do you guys see the little plus right there? I might want to make this a little larger so it appears a little bit more normal. So what do you guys think is going to happen if I click plus? It's going to build another aux track. I shouldn't say another. It's going to give us multiple different tracks within the drum kit. So if I click plus, it says aux 16. I don't know why it's going for aux 16 as far as the number, a little strange. But please notice up here, Ultrabeat 3.4. So if I select, let's say I'm playing this, and the clap is like, okay, I want that to be on a different track. What I would do is send it to subgroup 2. Notice here we'll have everything, but the clap will now be over here. Let's go hi-hat, subgroup 3. And I just make another one. You can make it and then assign it, or the opposite. It doesn't really matter. So now we'll have right here, there's a hi-hat. And then we'll do it one more time for that kabasa. And if you're like, how am I navigating? I'm just looking at the little tiles here. It's kind of hard to quickly read all this, but let me go back. See how this is blue, just kind of over and over. So I'll go boom, and that'll be subgroup 4. So now we got kick, clap, hi-hat, and the crazy kabasa. Now, is everybody feeling okay with the introduction of the multi-output functionality, where we have one plugin, but we could feed the different voices to various auxes for mixing purposes? Is that making sense as far as an introduction to that? I want you guys, well, I would recommend experimenting with this. Once you use it a couple times, it will become very intuitive. But I wanted to give you a quick summary of the instruments that would be considered or have the potential of being multi-output. There's only a handful of them. So the drum kit designer, multi-output. Also the sampler. So the EXS24 sampler, multi-output. And last but not least, Ultrabeat, multi-output. I don't think the strings, actually the strings and the horns, these are newer and I haven't experimented, but you could route, if you have a horn section, you could route, you know, obviously saxophone, trumpet, trombone to different tracks, but I have not really experimented with these. These are new to 10.3, I believe, and I just don't really use horns and strings that much. But those are the instruments that I'm aware of as far as being multi-output. So definitely mess around with those and experiment. Instead of editing this, what I'm going to do, you guys remember it just stops right there? So I could either go, I'll show you the two possibilities instead of talking about it. Let's say that I needed to have this go longer. By the way, if you have a mouse, Option Command mouse wheel, Option mouse wheel. I would strongly recommend owning a mouse. Your zooming and your navigating is just much easier. So again, it's Option mouse wheel, Option Command mouse wheel. So you can get pretty quick with that once you get the hang of it. So the idea is if I wanted this to repeat again, what would I do? I would select, or I can click over here, and then I can Option, click and drag. And I'll cover the snap mode. It's going to snap to bar 5 right there. It's actually a little bit off. Let me zoom in. Do you guys see how quickly the navigation can happen? Oh, do you guys remember that I did randomize a little bit? So some of the timing might be a little off. But this right here, that's close enough for me. So now I've just duplicated, and that was Option 1, undo, Command Z. Option 2 would be this, lower corner of, it could be the front or the back, well, let's say the beginning or the end of the region. You can get the trim functionality, and I just bring this back, and I can make it exactly 4 bars. Do you guys notice when I'm editing, you can see in that little window below my cursor, you can see the exact length, and it is snapping to bar 5. Boom. So that would be option number 2. It's really up to you. Let's say I preferred this, but I now want it to go for 8 bars. I would go to the top right-hand corner, and I can now loop this. Do you guys all see the divot right there? And also this is white, bright notes. This is a little bit more, you know, a little less vivid. So we can tell that this is a copy of this right here. And again, if you wanted to layer this, sure, maybe we'll leave it there. Maybe we'll mute it later. I just wanted to start with stuff that I normally couldn't get to in first cycle at all. Are you guys feeling okay? Like I haven't covered effects and automation. I'm gonna save that for the synthesizer, like kind of part 2 of this. But how are you guys all feeling with just the intro to drums? As far as the acoustic drum kit versus the drum machine approach.
Good
One
stuff.
thing that I, say again?
Good stuff.
Cool. One thing that I didn't cover and this will be like 5 minutes. I'm going to option click and drag so I could resize those. Or I could do command up and down. I'm just going to make some room here. And I want to show you how you could program your own drums using the drum machine. Instead of just taking this pattern and copying it down, you might want to make your own. So I'm just going to do option command N, or track new tracks, or you have quick keys or options for all the various types of tracks. But I just have the habit of this. It's just super easy for me. And we'll do the same exact type of track, Ultra Beat. But this time there will be no pattern. I'll just choose a random kit. So manual and down here. Let's go, I don't know, hip hop 90s kit. Now, if I were to turn the sequencer on, this has its own internal sequencer, and press play right here. So I did not make that pattern. That's a preset, which you could use. But let's say I wanted to make my own patterns and rearrange the order of them. Instead of working in this view, this is a little bit more of like a let's design the sound and manipulate the sound of each different element. I'm not going to cover sound design within today, but if you wanted to see the entire pattern visually, before I show you, you can click on any of these elements and you'll see the snare pattern down below here. And I could add in snares like this. Let's just play that real quick. It's not going to sound good, but I think it's much easier on the brain to see the entire pattern instead of one lane at a time. And all you have to do is click on full view down here. Do you guys see? This is the actual pattern that was just playing. So if I wanted to modify this, I could start clicking and adding notes in, or clicking on notes and removing them. But I want to start with my own pattern from scratch. It's quicker. It would not be quicker to manually delete all these. I'm just clicking and dragging. You can just use your pattern selector right here. And anything, this is a weird glitch that's been happening. Normally you open it up and you see SQ next to some of these, but if I close it and reopen, it's still not going to do it. Maybe because I modified it already. Do you guys see how SQ now appears? That's the glitch I was talking about. Anything below 1 through 15 will be empty patterns that are not sequenced. So I'll just choose the very first one. Boom. What do I have? An empty pattern. I can now start drawing stuff in. And this could be during playback as well. Worth mentioning, you could just build a rhythm, just click in random stuff by itself, but it might be more useful if you're developing a groove to set a cycle. So I'm covering several things simultaneously, but cycle, if you notice there's a lighter gray bar for 4 bars. So you can click on that. You can also click up here. That's the cycle button. You can also press C for cycle. And what that's going to do, it'll start playback at 1. When it gets to the end of 4, it will loop back. So you could think of this as loop playback, but they call it cycle in the software. So let's say I wanted to program something else. And by the way, I think we have kicks and snares figured out. I'll do some percussion. Oops. Oh, we definitely need a Guido. So check this out. I'll press play. So I could just literally just feel it out. Is that making sense? Because it'll play the sequence in the background, but it'll also play this particular pattern. Here's a shortcut. If you ever get into using Ultrabeat a little bit more, you can right click. Now I'm on tambourine. I'm just right clicking anywhere in this lane. Do you guys see it when you choose a voice? It highlights all the way across, so it's a little bit easier to follow. But you could right click and you could add every downbeat or every upbeat. You could also, let's do both of those as a quick example. We'll just play it. Let's say I like that, but I'm like, let's switch it up a little bit. You could alter existing randomly. Do you guys see how it shifted a few around? I'm okay with these little doubles. It feels a little bit different. So keep in mind, if you're feeling stuck or you're like, maybe I want a shortcut just to speed things up, you have options like this. You can alter existing. You can reverse the existing. So if I reverse this one, it's just going to flip. Whatever's at the end is now at the beginning. Not really feeling that, but it's a matter of personal preference. I'll put it back. So is everybody feeling okay? I could literally do this for hours, but I don't really want to. Maybe we'll throw in we need a mid-tom. We'll do a little tom roll at the end here. Do you guys see when I draw it in, we get 4 bars down here? This is velocity and or gate, depending on the drum. I can actually, well, I shouldn't say depending on the drum. It's actually velocity and gate. Do you guys see how I can make it shorter? If I drag to the right or left, I can change the gate length, but I can also drag it up and down for different velocities. So let's listen to this at the end. I'll just play this one by itself. I'm not pressing spacebar. You guys see how it gradually increased? Now that's not the best tom roll ever, but it's probably top 5, you know? So there you go. Let's actually play everything together and we'll probably have a hit song. So now that we're feeling tough and gangster, any questions, comments, concerns? All right, y'all, we're going to go for 2 more hours. Do not feel like you're in jail and you can't. You could definitely dip out early if you want, but I think we'll take a short break every hour and we'll kind of break it into themes. So right now we got a basic drum thing working. I'll probably cover some Apple loops and patterns. If you're not really into playing an instrument, I'll show you that stuff. And then the last part, I'll get more into like the detailed side of MIDI editing. I've shown you some things regarding drums, but it's a little bit different if you're working with melodies, harmonies, bass lines. So I think we're going to leave it there for drums initially. Do you guys have any questions, comments? Ooh, this is one more thing before a short break here. If I press play right now and solo this track, there's the pattern that I just made. Well, there's the actual sound, but notice that we don't have a region right here. This will play back the same forever for the whole song. So if you wanted to change that, what you would do is you would open up Ultrabeat and whatever pattern you had programmed, I always have to move this off to the side a little bit. But what I do is I drag the pattern selector box right here, drag that into this lane right next to the track, and now I have the actual pattern. And the benefit of this is that I could have it turn on and off. I could make copies of it. I could loop it. I could go into the first one and edit, go into the second one, edit differently. So keep that in mind. If you want the same pattern forever, don't change this. If you want to have variations, just copy it out. And again, option, click and drag. Generically, always make copies that you can then modify separately. Uh-oh. One too many. There we go. All right, so any questions on that? I'll loop this out to 8 bars, and we'll probably take a short break. It just turned 6:05. Let's do, I don't know, 7 minutes. So at 12 after, that's when I'm going to get the train going. What I'm going to do on Zoom is pause the recording. How in the heck do I do that? Normally it's, oh, here we go. It's a different layout this time. So I'm going to pause the, hell yeah, Nancy. I'm being a good boy. I will be completely caffeinated until the end of this particular presentation. But no, it's kind of a joke going with the vibe of the song, having some fun with y'all. So keep in mind, your tempo is very flexible. We'll go back to like 80. Not really feeling that tom roll anymore, but we'll change the level. But even though we're at 80 and these are at 90, as an example, it'll conform to the tempo. Now, I'm not suggesting that I like the electric piano. Wow, there's a bunch of them. Just listening through. There is a way of previewing this. This is going to drive me nuts, by the way. I'm doing a quick change of the tom level. Instead of making this multi output, I'm just going to literally use the internal mixer. This is level. So I'm just going to back off the toms there. We'll just listen to make sure they're not overpowering. Totally cool. Now there is a way, I wish that Clifton was here. I think it was Clifton, but I'm pretty sure if I'm playing the sequence, and you could even set up a loop, but I think you can do shift spacebar and it will actually preview. Nope, I think I have to click on it. Well, play and then click on it. And then it's a little clunky, but it will actually play this in time with the drums. So even though we have 80 for the main tempo, this is at 90, it's actually time stretching it. And that's one of the coolest things about the loops. They're not stuck. It's kind of like the freedom of Ableton and warping things. It's a very similar process in Logic, but it's not called warp. It's using flex audio. I like it. And by the way, I never compose this way. So today I'm like, I'm going to show you around, but now I'm like, I think I'm going to build an entire album just of Logic loops and become a famous producer. Do you guys
I've
notice
done that minus the famous producer part.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised. If you use nothing but Logic presets and loops, you could get some pretty usable commercial sounding stuff as long as you know how to mix it. So yeah, just if you are new to this stuff, experiment. This is 2 bars, so I'm going to top right corner, just drag it out. And let's keep in mind that was in the key of C, although we could change it. Now this is something I don't do, and if you know this, please jump in. We're in, do you guys see right next to 4/4 C major? You can customize this. There's a lot of different viewing options for the control bar up here. But if I chose custom, for example, do you notice that I lose some of the buttons in the background? So I'm just making a general statement. You might see someone using different views, but in some, or probably about half of these, you have 4/4 C major. I'm going to switch that real quick to G minor and see if that actually changes it. Do you guys get the idea? Oops. So if I brought that sample in, it's in the key of C, but I'm actually working in D minor. Is that changing it? I keep clicking the wrong thing. Let's go for something. Well, the major minor might not work with that little pattern, but that is not actually changing. So I'm a liar. But if you were sharing sessions with people, you could definitely notate what key you're using. I guess since we're in the key of C, I thought that would change the key. I'm a bad person.
I know that you the key
Say-
in some other menu. I don't remember which one.
When you're saving loops, you can actually say this was in the key of C and then, or A or whatever. And like if you make your own loops, you can determine. There is a way, I know for a fact there is a way of taking a loop and not making it a one shot, but where you can actually, it could be a one shot or a loop, but you could actually have it transposed, but that's a little bit beyond my knowledge. We'll just keep in the key of C though. Now this was an audio loop. Are we all clear? The blue, kind of an abstract waveform there. But I wanted to cover the idea of this over here, these MIDI ones. And worth mentioning, you can sort this. I can click right above the dropdown or be below the actual options. And I could say I only want to look at MIDI loops for right now. So now I'm just seeing only MIDI loops. And what's cool about this is that we are not attached to a sound. We're more just going with the actual performance and the feel versus the sound. So I'll click here. Now, that's kind of a Rhodesy sound, but check it out. I'm like, I don't really want a Rhodesy sound. I'm just going to drag this into a new track. It will make a new track. You guys see drag Apple loops here. So this will make a MIDI track, and it automatically has the associated electric piano sound, but guess what I could do? Switch it to anything. And as a matter of fact, a really simple technique that you guys might not really mess around with is just layering. So what I'm going to do, instead of changing this, I'm going to duplicate it and then layer. I'm thinking like a more of a softer synthesizer sound underneath it. And that way we have more options during mixing and arranging. So electric piano is selected. I never do it this way, but right click. Can we do it here? Duplicate. My eyes are playing tricks. Nope. There is a button up here, and you have a quick key, which is Command D. That's how I traditionally do it. But yeah, this little button right here next to the new track button, this will duplicate our track with the same exact settings. The one thing it didn't do is copy down the MIDI, so Option, click, and drag. Now we have the same thing, but on the secondary track, what I could do is switch the E piano for something else. So I'm thinking maybe retro synth and maybe a softer pad sound. Let me slow down here. Solo both of these. Did you guys all see this was, sometimes I go a little fast. This was the E piano, but if I want to switch a plugin, whether it's an audio effect or a software instrument, I just go to the right-hand side and we get this little drop down. And then I can see any plugins that are available within Logic. Also, if you have third-party plugins, they will be available down here. Audio unit instruments. So I could load up Reactor as an example, but I'm not going in a third-party direction. I just want to keep it with Logic today. So we'll go retro synth stereo, and you'll see the instrument will change. And for this one, initially, I'm just going to get a quick idea by itself, but then I'll see how it feels. Oh, we got Scott Millions bass. We'll probably go for strings or keyboards or maybe a pad. I'm not sure yet. Let's go strings. One thing with Logic that I always typically do, it's like I press play, I'm like, goodness gracious, let's turn the volume down. In Pro Tools, I'm usually having my faders, you know, within 5 or 10 dB of nominal. Sometimes in Logic, I'll have it at like 20% and it feels perfect. Has anybody else noticed that? The levels feel, they don't feel connected to Pro Tools levels. Has anybody noticed that? No, just me? Michael? Yeah, a couple of people. So keep in mind, yeah, keep in mind, like just go with what works with your ears. Don't think this looks strange. That took me a minute to get around. You gotta sometimes like not look and just listen. So this is kind of cool. I'm just gonna arrow through here. Retro strings. Some of these are not having time to really build up. Ooh, that's really nice. Now, let's say that the electric piano, let's listen together. That's pretty cool. But one thing that's very nice when you're layering is to move something up an octave or two. You could have the original here and the copy, you know, an octave or two higher or lower. It's really just a matter of preference. I'll leave this, well, I think I'm actually okay with the sound. I'm not really going to modify too much here, but there are several ways of transposing. Let's select the string track. So if I just focus on it by clicking, I'll show you a couple of different ways of transposing. We can open up the region inspector. So this whole thing, I, is the inspector. But we have different parameters or different modifications available region by region. So if I have two of these, for example, option, click, and drag. If I'm in the region inspector, I could affect this region, but it would not affect this region. If you're on track, this is more global. Are you guys comfortable with that idea? So if I transpose globally on the track, all regions will follow. I kind of like this idea. It gives us a little bit more flexibility. So if I wanted to alternate like 2 octaves high, 1 octave higher, I can go back and forth. So right here, transpose. If you click on this little arrow, it'll drop down, and we can go up or down a total of 3 octaves. So we have bass pitch, up 1, up 2, up 3 octaves. Let's say you wanted a 5th, you could double click here and type 7. So you're not stuck with octaves, but the default, it just gives you octaves. Let's try this an octave higher. And you can do this during playback as well. Maybe we'll like start by layering. Maybe this is be the dominant, and then we'll sneak this in. And then we'll check it with everything else. I'm going to unsolo. So pretty much within an hour and a half, including bad jokes and a quick little break, we have a pretty decent little thing cooking. Not a style of music that I would normally make, but this actually feels like we're in a good direction. Now, are you guys comfortable with the idea that these loops are just MIDI events within the region? You could then go in, like after you've changed a particular instrument, or maybe we added a phaser. So let's cover some audio effects real quick. The retro strings sound pretty tasty, but maybe I want to add a little bit of motion with the phaser flanger. It's completely your choice. So we'll go modulation and phaser. We'll back this off a little bit. Maybe the feedback. I don't really use this one all that much, I'll be honest. There's also presets up here. We'll go Chewy phaser. So I wanted to just elaborate. If you're working with the MIDI loops, you have more flexibility in the sense that we can change the instrument. But if you're working with audio or MIDI loops, feel free, once you're happy with the actual loop, feel free to add in audio effects and customize it to your liking. That's a pretty simple but important concept, in my opinion. So maybe, oh, you know what? We did 2 octaves here. Maybe this one we'll do 1 octave. So if I select the second region and I go to the region inspector, we'll transpose that up 1 octave. And if I close the loop browser with O and zoom in a little bit, can you guys see it? It's pretty subtle, but we have 24 and we have 12. So it actually indicates the transposition within the region. I just want to hear it when it gets here. Oh, my bad. I'm a dingus. So it's a little more subtle there. Did you guys see what I did though? I had cycle on and then I was like, oops. I just removed it by clicking on the bar or pressing C, and you can drop your cursor wherever you want to begin playback. Also, if you want to go 1 bar at a time, it is period and comma, also known as greater than or less than. And if you do shift, that does 8 bars at a time. So if you're working on like 64 bar, section, you can go shift period and jump 8 bars at a time very, very quickly. We all good there? So period and comma, and then shift period and comma. Those are good little navigation shortcuts. Now, do you guys have any questions on the loop browser? Just using the kind of the general navigation up top, choosing things down here, and then dragging them in. We all feeling good with that? Cool. Now let's go for a little bit more MIDI editing, maybe a little bit more with the software instrument vibe as opposed to using the loop browser. I actually was hearing during playback, I was hearing this, and if you notice, I'll open this up with Option double click. Do you guys all notice that we have chords up top and we have this, like the left hand of the performance is doing a bass line, right? So just a real quick thought, it's like to start with, maybe I'll take this and ignore this and turn it into a bass line on a different track. So I'm just kind of improvising here. Clearly, if you're a good keyboard player or bass player, you could just naturally perform it. So let's go ahead and we'll make a new track. I'll actually just duplicate this track again right here, or Command D. And then what I'm going to do is just copy this down. So we have 3 parts that are the same MIDI minus the transposition, but this one I'm going to label just bass generically so I can keep organized. And what we'll do is we're going to choose, actually let's edit first. So how would I open this up? Option double click or Command 2. And I did mention this earlier, but that's just my preference. You could double click and then you have to open up the screen down here. It's just a little bit more of a hassle. So Option double click. And I'm just going to select the chords here. You can also click and drag in the piano roll on the pianos, the notes, sorry. Oops, missed that one. If I hold shift, I can include that. And then I'll just press delete. We'll zoom in a little bit. Everybody feeling okay? So I just removed all that and we're at a pretty low octave. I actually might end up moving this up an octave, but this will be decent to start with. Now check this out, side note. Well, it's a Rhodes, so the low end is going to be a little bit, you guys know if you're sitting at a keyboard, piano, low notes will be a little bit more on your left, right will be a little bit more on your right. So I was hearing it a little bit off-centered, but we'll fix that. When I select notes, they are automatically previewing. You can turn that function off right here with MIDI out. So now I select notes and there is no triggering happening. So I could select for editing without triggering with this button here. Everybody feeling okay? Righteous. So let's pick a bass sound and I'll probably bypass the initial effects that were on that track. So we just have the instrument and I'm gonna go, let's go Alchemy, which is a very powerful instrument. If you've never messed around with Alchemy, it's probably the most flexible in the entire arsenal. And here, the default view, what I'm going to do actually just to get going, I'm going to solo this and I'll turn on the cycle. Now, these are not all going to sound amazing, but when you first open this up, you get browse. This is the browser, this whole section here. Simple only gives us the ability of kind of clicking through. I'll show you this more. But then advanced, that allows you to actually fine tune and build a patch from scratch or modify what you've already started with. Most people that are getting started though will just go browse and they'll just choose, you know, let's choose a category. I think I'm in the category of bass. And then you get a subcategory to narrow it down. I'm thinking something a little bit more natural, not necessarily a bass sample, but I don't want it to be like EDM or drum and bass aggressive. I'm thinking like acoustic. I don't know the vibe here, maybe down tempo. I think that might be appropriate. And then the timbre is our final selection here. You actually have different modifications. You guys see that? So you can actually change this, but I'm just leaving it the default. So we're going down tempo. Timbre, we'll go either simple or dark. Now what's happened as I choose these various categories? The list over here has been shrunken down quite a bit. If you remove all of this, you have over 3,000 presets. It'll say that I think 3,400, something like this. But I'll choose Ghostly. There is a gnat attacking me. I have houseplants, and I don't know what happened, but in the past week, the gnats are taking over slowly but surely, and there's like plants right around the corner. I swear I am sober. I'm like, ah! Literally got in between my glass. I'm sorry. I'm a special person. Side note, I'm going to drag the bass up. So we're going to have drums, bass, and then melodic instruments. And we'll just listen to Ghostly Bandura bass. Nope. What's wrong with that? It's actually the octave. So I could go in and move the notes up, or I could just make sure that I have the region selected, and I'll just transpose it up an octave, and we'll get better articulation. I'm not feeling that sound. Well, we could listen to it, but I'm not really feeling it. Rounded bass. Maybe we'll try 2 octaves up. It's kind of cheesy, but you guys get the idea. I'm just showing you some ideas. Not feeling these. Some of these are playing back samples, by the way.
Could you try orchestral and then do a double bass?
Orchestra. I was gonna make a smart, I was gonna make a comment, but for you, anything. You said orchestral, so over here, and
Yeah,
then
see if they have an upright bass or a double bass.
I got bass, acoustic, orchestral, nothing. there's literally 0 presets that would fall into that category. Maybe I'll go for all, and then orchestral, there's still nothing. That's real strange that they would get. Well, if you were doing like organs and mallets and you chose orchestral, you would get something. I will give you one bit of advice. The EXS24 sampler, actually, I'm just going to go in that direction real quick. I'll choose stereo, although it could be mono. But normally you choose presets from most Logic devices from up here. On the sampler, you actually choose it from this little open space, and that we can go in many different directions. I was going to bring this up eventually anyway, but if you want realistic sounds, that my first thought is the EXS24 sampler, as opposed to software synthesizer. So orchestral, there's no bass. Any thoughts on the oh, I guess we'll just go bass and then acoustic, electric, or synth. They don't really have a double bass per se. So what are you thinking? Kind of surprised here. Tune percussion keyboards.
The upright bass will do.
There was something similar in the, there was a feel of that, but it wasn't quite. Let's go unplugged. Play that. Pardon?
It's not under strings.
I'll try it, but no thank you. I'm trying to go through the pre. Oh, you have to do it here. Duh. I think that's usable, but we'll go for strings real quick. Strings. Well, orchestral. Strings. Yeah, good call. We're not going to spend an hour on this, by the way. I feel like I'm wasting time on bass, but I definitely need to drop the octave now. What is going on here? You guys, we're getting into some weird territory. Let's go back to 0, neutral. Okay. I was going to curse, but we're recording, so F all of that stuff. Let's just go back to Alchemy, and we're just going to pick a bass sound and move forward. And actually, let's go with this idea. I have seen people work where they'll spend an hour on the bass line and they lose all motivation for direction. I'll try something for a maximum of 5 minutes. If I feel any ounce of frustration, I will make a mental note, doing that later, moving on. As long as the part and the feel is correct, don't spend an hour on sound design or getting the perfect sound. Just move and react quickly and then clean. It's like cooking. It's like just cook. And then at the end, you're going to go in and clean things up. It's like, don't worry about cleaning stuff up as you go. Not the best example, but back off, all right? And again, I think we're going to have to transpose this up an octave. I'm just going to go through a few of these. When in doubt, 80s classic synth bass or electro bass? Yes, right there. Now, if we had a sub, it would be like, yes, please. It's a little bit low, but... Now, the irony is I'm not feeling this is the best bass line. Here, let's go in and add a little bit more variety. What we can do is use some of those. Well, and by the way, I'm improvising here. This might not turn out great, but what I'm going to do is quantize, because we had a human feel of the piano. Maybe we would actually benefit from quantizing this a little bit tighter for the bass line. So what I'm going to do here is I will do Command A to select all my notes, and then I will click on Q, boom, and let's just see if it feels better with the drums. That's half the issue. The timing feels a little bit better now. But the strength, let's say it's a little too perfect. Let me zoom in so you can see this. If you remember from first cycle, I always mention this. Strength is 100% on the grid. As I go to 0, that was the original. So if I wanted it somewhere in between, it'll be closer to perfect, but not absolutely perfect. Most sequencers, most DAWs will have quantization strength, so use that to your advantage. This might feel a little bit too perfect. 7080 might feel a little bit more human. One more thing that we might try with these notes, I'm just going to try it, is it's not going to work for all of them. But for these ones, maybe do the forced legato thing. I think it's in here. Nope. This is new territory for me. I'm trying to learn Logic stuff. No. Why would I not see it? Urgh. Interesting. Let me try one more thing. And I'll show you what I did there. Nope, it's not working. Okay, check this out. Do you guys see this button here? Collapse. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Yeah, collapse mode. So let's say we have, full, 88 keys shown in the piano roll. It can get pretty, oops. It can get pretty intimidating. Here, let me zoom out here. What is going on? I must have had something else selected. So what I could do is collapse, and it will only show me the notes that I'm working with. And then I could zoom in, see that, there's just less stuff on the screen. So collapse mode is especially useful for drums, but it also for anything else. Now, instead of doing the legato thing that I was talking about, I could just manually select these and drag them out a little bit. But I will have occurrences where I don't want that to overlap. So maybe I could just go in, and just like any region, that's kind of what I was hinting at. You could stretch out a region, bottom corner. You can do the same thing. Well, when I say stretch out, you can expand or collapse. You can do the same thing with notes. Let's listen to the first bar and see if this felt better. If it doesn't, I'll just undo. That feels a little bit better. So I'm going to take all these notes, the short ones, and just kind of give them just an eyeball. I'm like, that'll be fine. And then I'll listen to everything at the end. This one is going to overlap if I stretch it too much. And then these can all be stretched. Is everybody following along? I'm just making the notes longer. Not super complex. And then we might end up throwing in a little bit of maybe a little modulation. I could also spice it up with moving octaves. That's another thing that I love to do with bass. So I'm removing collapse mode. We'll go back here to the piano roll. And what I'm thinking is, I'm just literally thinking, that's saying a lot for me. What I could do is take one or two of these notes and move them up an octave. Let's go shift option up and listen to this. And then this one, maybe an octave higher. That just feels a little different. I kind of like it. And then maybe this one will go an octave higher. The velocity on this one is a little bit lower. Can you guys all see the blue right there? I have a velocity slider for quickly adjusting the selected note or notes. Maybe we'll take this one and this one. Ooh, there's an overlap I didn't catch. There's got to be a quicker way to do the legato thing where they don't overlap, but I'm having a moment right now. It's not something I teach, but I was trying to recall in my brain. This might be a bit much. Not feeling my changes. Honestly, towards the second part of it, it's getting a little bit off. Let's play it one more time and then we'll move on. Even this is too much. Was this... Okay, real talk, I don't know if I move this up. It feels a little different. Let me play it with the original keyboard part. So I feel like I'm kind of going on a weird tangent here, but hopefully you guys are getting something out of this. Oops. It'll be this one here. Yep, it's following. Are you guys getting distortion on your end at all? I heard a little click, but I think the click is on the zoom end, not on the audio end. And it wasn't consistent. I just want to make sure it's sounding decent. All right, y'all. So is anybody sensing the problem? I think it's this right here. When it repeats, this key change is throwing this off a little bit. Now, without getting too far into theory, because I'm not that person, we're going from... Oh, snap. Well, actually, it wasn't the whole song in the key of C initially? Or am I imagining things? I think the loop that we brought in. But we have C here, and then we have, what is this note? I'm bad, but if you hover above it, please. G. All right. Without, yeah, I'm not going to go into tuning and moving notes around. That would be a little bit tedious. But we started off with drums, just some basic ideas. We brought in some loops, and then we took this bass line from the chord change, removed all the chords, and just kept the little low notes, and then turned that into a brand new track with slightly different feel. Worth mentioning that the Rhodes keys part may have been slightly off in the timing on purpose within the loop, but let's listen to that one more time, and I want to make sure it doesn't feel too off. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Like I quantized the bass to 16ths, but the keyboard part is still more of a human feel. Okay, right off the bat, the piano, I'm going to transpose up an octave, so it's a little bit more audible in the low end. Anybody know what's going on here? I think these might be ghost notes that are not really... Maybe it's just because of the octave. I'm not sure. Any guesses there? Oop, Shift Command Z. No guesses. All right. I'm going to move this up one more octave and see if I can hear those notes. Yeah, it's actually kind of cool because one's tight quantized, one's not, and it feels like two human beings that are playing the same groove but slightly off. But honestly, these notes are a little inaudible with the bass line. So what I'm going to do, executive decision, I'm going to pitch the keyboards back down. Do you guys remember I went up 2 octaves and up 1? So I'm going to remove the 24 and I'll go to 12, and then this will be back to 0. So I'll kind of trade places, and that's a good example of how flexible this is. So we'll listen again. This does feel a little bit off, but when it comes back, it feels a little bit off, but we're going to keep on trucking. So I think we should get into some real-time recording because I technically did not perform any of this, and I'm not proud of that. But I think we should get into some real-time recording and some step input recording. That'll give you obviously a little bit more flexibility and creativity if you wanted to record your own stuff in. So how about this? Let's do this. You know, we've been kind of skating on thin ice here. Untitled. Let's save this. We'll call it, I don't know, Smillions. Because it's funny to me. We're just going to save a package, audio files, Alchemy, technically Ultrabeat samples. Do you guys know what the importance of this is? Anybody? Okay, how about this? If I was working on my computer and this session never left, totally fine. But what if I sent this to you and you didn't have the same Ultrabeat samples? When I send it to you, the samples will be included in the actual package or the Logic project. So that's why you would want to check whatever you're using down here. I'm not using the sampler anymore, so definitely audio, Alchemy, Ultrabeat. If you're using these instruments, that'd be a great idea. So we got it saved, and let's get something cooking as far as a new software instrument track. Now this time we're going to go for, and again, I'm not a great keyboard player, but I'll show you that we can actually quantize timing and the pitch. If we're a little bit off, we can get in the ballpark, and then we can fine tune it. I hate to do this, but I never show you detail of Alchemy. I just want to go a little further with that one. This and Retro Synth are probably my favorites for synthetic sounds. Definitely recommend starting with those. And we'll just make one of those. Now I don't have a controller in front of me. I actually have an older controller over there, but it is not recognized by this particular computer, and I have not had time to troubleshoot it yet. What we're going for is something that is not bass, not keyboard sounds. We'll go for something, probably a lead sound. And we'll go analog. Maybe we'll go soft. Down tempo. I'm just going kind of quick here. I'm going to move, now going a little fast. This is Command K. That's not what it is, but that's the key, quick key. And also you can go window somewhere down here. It'll say show the musical typing. That is this keyboard here. That sounds pretty cool. We can use Z and X. You can click here, or you don't have to click. You could use Z and X on your keyboard. So you have a built-in controller. The only downside of this, you have a limited octave range. You can move the octaves, but you have limited key range. And then you have C and V for your velocity. Do not try to strike your keyboard harder because it's not velocity sensitive. So keep that in mind. I'll maybe back the velocity off a little bit. Now, this is cool to start with. Maybe we'll try... I actually liked one of these more. I'm sorry to waste time. We even have a built-in delay. Worth mentioning, some of these will have built-in effects. Now, when you're on the browse view right here, you're going to get, again, this is a review, but you get the browser up here. You still get the simple controls down here. You can actually do some pretty interesting stuff with this little grid. I'm on analog mellow lead, but if I play a note, now I'm not suggesting that you need to move this around the whole time, but you might be like, this sound, boom, is pretty cool, but let's just get a little different with it. You can actually go like in between some of these and notice the X, Y axes over here are modifying. And the settings here are modifying. So these are like presets within the preset. And if you wanted to, you could actually record automation. Like I could play a note. I could move this back and forth, or I could assign this to a controller, like a physical controller. So that's something I didn't cover the first time, showing you this. And then another thing that you should be aware of if you want to get into, if you're already into synths or you want to go a little bit further with sound design, advanced is where you get all the traditional synthesizer controls. You have your oscillators here. You get a filter here, your modulation matrix, and LFOs and envelopes here. So you can get very, very busy with this. I'm not going, that's not today's class. I'll probably do a synth-ish centric class eventually. But right now I'm just showing you where to go. So let's say I'm playing this. And I'm like, you know what? Let's tune one of these up an octave. Like we can go 12 semitones right here. Can you guys hear it? Here, I'll turn this down. It's actually higher quite a bit. So you can tune each of the voices separately. Let's go one octave higher. And they have volume controls for each one. It's very, very flexible. And if you wanted to change the various waveforms, you have all your waveforms here. You can also load samples in. So I could say, hello. And as long as it was, you know, close to the pitch, you know, of C or D, whatever I was using, I could then play that with the keyboard chromatically, which is very, very cool. Not doing sampling today. Now let's just play this and we'll get some little melody going. Again, don't judge, please. Well, you can, but I wouldn't even know. Pretty please. Okay, whatever. Seriously, let's go. Record R. Now, if you were listening, the level's a little low, and it was perfect. But what we're going to do here is a little bit of cleaning up. So, boom, I just trimmed it back to 4 bars. And I'm going to open this up. I'll listen through once. I might delete a few notes, but then I'll show you quantizing. I actually like that, but the level, again, is a little bit getting buried by all this stuff. Let's open up our mixer real quick, and I'm just literally going to start turning things down. The bass is overpowering. Let's get the we'll just go like this. So I'm kind of jumping all over here, but yeah, that's definitely way too loud. All right, so we can hear it a little bit better. I keep trying a Pro Tools quick key that will not work here. Command equals does not work. Anyway, let's open this up. And I'll probably listen through one more time. This. I think it's actually okay considering I'm just guessing and I don't know keyboard theory. Maybe we'll tighten it up a little bit, 16th note. Move it up an octave, maybe to help it cut through. And still need more. Do you guys see the level is actually pretty low? A lot of Logic instruments will have a much higher reading on the meter. So I'm going to go actually back to Alchemy. Oops, I double clicked there. And I'll just turn up the main volume master right here. Yeah, it's still better, but maybe we'll use a quick little instance of compression here just to help keep a little bit more consistent level. I don't know. I don't really use this one that much. Let's go vintage let's go opto. And we'll turn the cycle on. C for cycle. By the way, any compressor that automatically applies auto gain, not a fan. Unless you're talking about, well, yeah, generally not a fan. Now, this sounds pretty cool, but let's say that, now this is maybe not the best example. Is anybody, I've had a few people in class be like, that is clearly in the scale of blank. Does anybody know how to listen to that and be like, that's C or D, like without actually even touching an instrument? I can only see 2 people's faces right now, so I don't know how many people are even here. Mo, I'm guessing not. Okay, someone's.
I don't have perfect pitch, but some keys I can hear better than others.
Okay, someone was in the chat, but then I just lost the dang chat thing. I have not been looking at the chat. My apologies. Okay, Andrew's signing out. Okay, nobody had I was thinking maybe someone put that in the chat, but let me go back to this main window and close that out. Here is, now, this might throw some stuff off. What I could do, though, is take the first MIDI loop that we started with, the electric piano, and I'm going to use this and go back to the melody. So it seems like I'm all over the place, but it's actually related. If we thought this was in the key of C major, like the most obvious starting point, well, I shouldn't say obvious, but a lot of people start with C. I can go scale quantize. If I've selected all these notes, if I go C major and nothing moves, that will show me that this is actually C major. Okay, it did move, so let's try G. I'm just doing common ones. A. Still. Okay, so nobody has any guesses. I guess we'll try. I wish I was better at theory. I really did. I really do. Sorry. Oops. Now I'm losing track. Let's turn that off. Okay, well, how about this? You know what? The only thing this will affect, and actually, I think this is a good problem to have to show you as a learning experience. The only thing that I might not use, because if we start quantizing everything, this might not match initially. So I'm going to mute this one. What I'm going to do is I'll start with the bass, we'll pick a key, and we'll just start quantizing everything to that. Before we do that though, let's just listen. So check this out. If I go to bass, it'll take a couple seconds, but I'll select all my notes. Let's go E, E major. Everybody cool? So E major. Notice that quantizing would traditionally move the timing of the notes left and right. This is moving them up and down. So now we have the bass in E major. Do you guys want to go major or minor? You guys pick. Mo, you're the only face I see. I don't know. Minor? Minor? Cool. All right.
Minor.
Let's go for it. Now, natural minor, harmonic, melodic. That's where I'm like, I just pick stuff till it sounds cool. Minor pentatonic. All right, melodic minor it is. Oh, snap. This is not going to sound good with everything else open. So we're going to listen, and when we're happy with the feel of this, then we'll start applying the same quantization. I do not like where this is going. It's automatically changing it pretty drastically. So we might go, oof. Note to self, always have a plan for what you're going to teach. Let me go back to none. So this is off. And that's the cool thing. You can always get back to the original recording if you turn this off. If you just go off, we're back to the original. And let's just figure out maybe a little, what is this note? I'm not good at this. If you hover above, so we got G. Let's just try G major versus minor and see if that keeps it close. I think we already tried G major, but let's go G major.
You have a D minor chord going on there.
D minor.
It's a D minor 7.
So should we go with D minor?
Sure.
Is that what you were suggesting the first time?
No,
See-
I'm just now actually seeing the notes that you got.
Oh, I
but
got you. I got you.
I
See,
can't
what's
do it by ear.
natural minor versus harmonic or melodic minor?
That actually has to do with the when you have a lead line, but as far as chording goes, I would just go with a harmonic minor.
It sounds better harmonic. You're just
Yeah.
raising the seventh note versus leaving it natural.
Do you see that it kind of put all these notes together though, where there was more variety? I guess we'll just listen, right? Yeah, we'll just listen. Let's check it out. See, I'm not feeling, okay, here's a plot twist. We're not going to quantize because that I could show you in a different session, different recording. I'm starting to not like where that's going. So again, anytime, and I appreciate both of your input, but anytime I'm feeling frustrated, it's like, okay, literally I'll like, let's go get a glass of water. Let's go, like, I don't know, just switch it up, or I'll switch the session to something else. I'm not upset, but frustration does happen in the process, and how you deal with it, and not just by yourself, but like you're recording musicians, people get frustrated. It's a good thing to have general, if you're working with a band or a musician that's never been recorded and they're frustrated, it's like, hey, let's take a 5-minute break. Hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's go outside and get some fresh air just for a few minutes. I think that's actually really good advice. Not just for today. So I want to make sure, I think we should have the students do a music theory class. I'm looking at you, Jules.
That'd be fun.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave it there for a second. You know what? We still have an hour, and I'm like, I could either end this shorter than an hour, or we could take a short break. There's not many of you. I'm gonna take a short. I actually need to use the restroom. Get a little bit more water/coffee. You guys cool? So we'll do a short break. When we come back, I want to show you. So this little analog mellow lead was cool, but I want to show you step input recording, and maybe we'll replace the bass line. Maybe we'll just add another melody, but I want to definitely cover step input recording, all the details, because that has a completely different feel than what we're working on right now. So I think we'll leave it there. 7:07. Let's be back in 7 minutes at 14, and then I'll go up until 8, and then we'll be done with the thing. Let me stop the recording. All right. Ba-ba-ba-bum. Please. Pretty please. Where are you at, Zoom? There we are. Pause record. Resume recording. Now. Oh, I said 7:14. It's okay. I'll give it a minute. One thing, like I said, I was like literally emotionally processing the situation right before break and during break. And I'm like, sometimes you get stuck, and that's actually totally normal. If you guys, some of you might be newer to working on your own music, there'll be times where I'm like, nope, moving on. Like, let's just start a new song, or let's just turn it off for an hour or come back the next morning with fresh ears. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just making a decision. I'm literally going to mute this stuff, and actually maybe we'll just hide these tracks. So what I could do, this is something I don't always do, but I think, ooh, I'm not seeing the hide option on this particular version. Do you guys know about, well, I shouldn't ask the questions because there's not tons of you here, but some of you might know this and some might not. But if you right click on a track, you could hide track. And then we get the H up here. I was just like, oh, I don't have the H. But if I click on the H, it'll show or hide the hidden tracks, which is pretty cool. There's a similar function in Pro Tools, but it's just a little different implementation. But once you actually do that, you will have H for any of the tracks. So if I clicked all of these, oops, if I clicked all of these and then hide, they're all hidden. If you ever wanted to customize what shows up on the track header, you can right click and then you have track header components, and you can actually choose what you want to see there. Although the irony is I still don't see hide. Anywho, you can customize. For example, if you never used input monitoring, you could remove this and you would never see it on your audio tracks. So you can definitely customize. One little side note, on off, this is actually similar to Pro Tools inactive. So if you mute a track, it's still requiring processing. If you turn a track off, like Ultrabeat, if I power it off, there's no more processing to run this particular track. So that's a subtle difference. It's not just mute, but it's actually turning the whole thing off. What I'm going to do though is actually, so I don't really need the on-off thing right now. Just wanted to elaborate there. What I'm going to do is deselect these. I'm just going to hide the bass and all of the melodic content. And oops, one thing I want to do is make sure that they are muted. Just triple checking that, and then we'll only hear the drums, theoretically. So what I'm going to do is go in a new direction. And sometimes I'll do this, not just in a class, but I'm like, okay, I got stuck somewhere. Let's just do a different version. Ooh, and this is Logic centric, but it's almost like a save as, where I can have multiple versions of a particular arrangement with different layouts, well, not layouts, but if I wanted to like remix this song or try a different direction, before I even hide those tracks, I will unhide, and then check this out. Project alternatives. So what I could do is, instead of save as, I could have within one session, I could have many different alternatives. And this is something that's newer to Logic. I don't know what version, like it's in version 10, but I don't know if it was 10.2. But this is a pretty cool thing that I never cover in class. So I can make a new alternative, and I'll call this, I don't know, number 2. Not that creative, but just for this example. And then, boom, we will save. And notice up here, it's going to change to version 2. And I could actually delete these tracks. Are you guys cool with that? Like I could delete it, and then anytime that I want to go back to the original, I just go project alternatives, and then I choose the original. For this example, since it's not really a serious thing, I'm holding shift and selecting all these tracks except for the top 2, delete and delete. Yes. Now I'll save, Command S, and I can always go back to the alternative right here that contains everything we just saw. So that's a really simple, really nice little feature that I have recently started using a little bit. So we'll go back here. And the major theme that I really wanted to cover, a lot of students will see this in first cycle, but they won't start using it that much because it's a little daunting. But that would be step input recording. That is the logic term. It's generically, it's step sequencing. So what I'm going to do is make a brand new track and Option Command N, or you can click on the plus here, and we'll do another software instrument. This time, since I've used Alchemy several times, let's go Retro Synth. That's another favorite, as I mentioned. And from here, oh, I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. I always do it the same way. Make a new track, but this time we use the library, just to really emphasize for a few minutes what the library is all about. So Open Library is checked, and I will see the library show up over here. And if you have Retro Synth, you will see all of the presets right here. So instead of me having to open this up and go through the presets with the arrow, interesting. I was going to say the name was taking a while to catch up. But you could also, if you create a track with no instrument, no plugin, we will see generic categories that are not specific to the instrument. For example, I want a bass sound. I could just choose bass. I could choose drum kit. It's like really whatever I want. And I don't know why. This is appearing a little bit different. I think it's because I started the track. Let me delete this track and make a brand new. This is getting a little weird. Please delete. The focus was not on the correct track. So let me make a brand new one. But this time I'll show you how it would show up if you did an empty channel strip with no instrument and open library. So now I'll see bass. Weird. Oh, I'm being a dingus. I was expecting like a synth bass category, but I have to go to synthesizer and then bass. So the unique difference about this is that when I choose any of these, I am not choosing an instrument. I am choosing a preset channel strip. So I'm just going to choose deep synth bass, and I'll open up my keyboard. It's very bassy. That was a joke because it was in a higher octave. Okay, so that actually sounds pretty cool. Now, if I wanted to record using, are we all cool with the library just being like a generic collection of sounds? And obviously you can go through different categories. If you ever saw a little download icon in any of these categories, it's because of the sound library not having, like you have not downloaded all sounds. So now, instead of pressing record, well, here's real-time recording in 10 seconds. R for record, and we get a 1-bar count in. Traditional recording, and then we can edit and quantize. That is what most musicians would consider normal recording, but I would like to show step input recording. So I don't need the library anymore. I don't need the traditional keyboard. I would open up a special keyboard that looks like this. This is Option Command K or Window. And right here, it would say show the step input keyboard if it was currently hidden. And what this allows us to do is choose our note durations and our velocities. And I can enter one note in at a time. Now I'm not zoomed in here, but can you guys all see it's just, I'm going to redo this. That's actually a bad example. But if I play that back, it's not going to sound like what you just heard. It'll play back. Amazing. No, clearly those are random notes, but the point is, if I have chosen 8th note or 16th note, this is something I just learned. 1 through 7 will modify your your note duration, so that will definitely speed things up. But if I have 16th note, every single note that I click in, those are going to be 16th notes. So let me delete. Do you guys see that little flash? That's always, hey, what you're trying to do is not working. I'm currently focused on the keyboard, so I need to click on the region and then delete that. But a couple of details that I did not cover yet This is chord mode. So if I wanted to build a chord change, let's go for a super obvious example like half note chord mode. And if I play notes right now, I'll do. Now, can you guys see that it actually stacked those notes? And the playhead is just waiting to move forward with spacebar. So then I can do another chord, spacebar. Oops, K doesn't work for some reason. So you can just play a chord, press spacebar, play a chord, press spacebar, and it just keeps moving forward. So that's a quick intro to chord mode, but I'm not going to go with chord changes here. Couple modifiers in the middle here. You have dotted notes. So 16th dotted. You guys, well, some of you know, dotted notes would be 1.5 of the original duration. So if I chose whole note, it would be 1.5, but it's like all combined, not separate. And triplets. So if I choose, we'll go 16th notes, and if I play some notes in, and if we looked at the grid, these are actually triplets. As you can tell, 3 are fitting in the 2 spaces. So we got triplets as opposed to dividing in, 4s or 2s. Not going to show triplets today outside of that example. And the last option is, this one is, it's a weird name, but here, let me turn off triplets. Sustain inserted notes. And what this does, if I played an 8th note, I'll just play a note. And then I press this button, it extends it by the same amount. So if I were to play the note over and over, it's going to be segmented, like dun, 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 dun. If I keep clicking on this button, it just extends it by this duration. So that's a nice little modifier, but I don't use it that much. So I keep deleting everything. I'm just giving you quick examples. Last but not least, the velocity. If you're using a traditional MIDI controller, you would not need to worry about this. You would just play your notes in naturally. But you can start, it's like, hey, I want forte, and you can hover above and it'll say velocity 96 as the preset. So now, and I don't know how this is going to feel with 80 BPM, this drum track, but we'll just play in something real basic. You can click on notes, so I'll click C2 and then C3. So you can click using the keyboard. You can also play using your MIDI keyboard. Let me back up here. I should always, I haven't done this in a minute, thus the flashing screen. If you wanted to rest, it's spacebar. So, click on the keyboard. We'll do an octave, and a Z and X will change the octave, just like the other keyboard. You can see that blue bar moving when I use Z and X. So I'll just do C, 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 1 octave apart, and I'll do space bar, and I'll play in a few more notes. Space bar, space bar. I'll do C, and then an octave, and then back down an octave. Actually, let's go higher. My bad. I have to move my cursor back here. It's subtle, but it is actually, if I want the note to be right there, I have to move it back. And then I'll play one more. Man, got to click on the keyboard. That's the only downside of this. You have to focus on the keyboard. Let me undo that one. And then we'll actually have a space there. And then I'll go up 1 octave higher. And let's actually play this and just see if it feels even remotely musical. It's okay. Another quick example. We won't go faster this time. 16th notes. I'll do less rest. I'm just moving the octaves around and just playing 4 notes for simplicity. Down a couple octaves. And actually, I think that's fine. This will be more of a continuous stream of notes. Maybe more appropriate for a melody than a bass line, but... Now, I'm thinking transpose it down an octave and then go in and remove notes strategically or shift the octaves so it's less doing a melodic run up. It could be jumping between octaves. Even though I already did some octave shifting, are you guys following along? Like instead of bum, 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 I could drop maybe this one, take every other note as an example, or just strategically just pick a few and just move them around. Maybe I'll take this and move it up an octave. This is one of my favorite techniques for MIDI. It's like just take a handful of notes here or there and then move them around. You'll have a completely different feel. These are maybe a little too high for a bass line. There we go. Now let's just see what that feels like. After literally a minute or less, it's going to feel completely different. So that's a little bit more what I was thinking in my brain. Although it's harder to program it that way, I'll just program the general line and then start shifting octaves. And a friendly reminder, any note selected, shift option up or down. That's going to be octaves. Now, is everybody feeling okay with this? I'm showing you the manual way, show the step input keyboard. This allows you to enter one note in at a time as opposed to stressing in real time. You could play a note and sit there and wait for 10 minutes, then play another note. If that matched your pace or your workflow, that might be a little bit more useful. Any questions on that? I only see a couple faces, but any questions? Okay. Well, going back to the idea of quantization. I had a little bit of a mild train wreck when we're trying to get various things that I did not make into a key, and it was kind of off by a little bit. But this thing, I'm not partial to any particular feel. I'm just experimenting. So if I'm starting something from scratch, sometimes I'll just record and I'm like, you know what? Let's just put it into a different key. And again, all this is doing is moving certain notes higher or lower to fall into a specified key. And obviously there are many, well, you have all the standard scale or the keys, but then you have many standard types of scales and you get some, more unique, quirky ones down here. Let's go Japanese. And now we can score anime. That was a bad joke. So we got different modes and whatnot. I'm not going to spend an hour down here, but I would definitely encourage you guys to try this out. One more thing that I'm hearing is, and I'm not, again, tied to any thing in my mind what I want, but I'm hearing continuous notes. So feel free, after you're done, just try removing a few notes. Like listen through as it cycles. I'll just cycle this by clicking and dragging. It's like cut out these two, maybe these three. And then maybe cut out a couple more here. So that feels automatically like a completely different bass line, even though it has the same origins. So hopefully these little tips and tricks, this is not like school stuff. Like you wouldn't have to do that on a test, obviously, but it's just really, I don't know. I felt very intimidated with MIDI for the first year. And now it's like, oh, just try some stuff out, especially with quantizing. It's like you're rarely going to get a horrible result, especially if you're stuck. Just jam some notes out, quantize. How y'all feeling with that? Any questions? I see the chat lighting up, but it's better if you just ask me because I have to like move screens and open the chat. Unless someone's signing off or something. That's probably what it is.
We're just commenting.
Nintendo 8-bit, yes. Yes. Modes, sure. I know what a mode is in my brain, where it's like, okay, you're in C, but like Dorian or Mixolydian, like you're starting on a different note of the C scale. I know that idea, but I have not implemented it into composing outside of, I have a sequencer in the other room where you can just move sliders and you're like, Dorian. And then I'm like, that sounds dope. It sounds better than major just for what I'm working on. So I just experiment. I'm more of a tinkerer than like a musical theory buff, you know? But that's definitely something I have been slowly working on. I actually have a couple of videos right now. It might be on the other computer, but I have a couple of tabs of like music theory. Let's get going. That's what I've been working on. A couple videos a week.
Could you open that drop down on
Which
the
one?
scale quantize?
Oh, sure. Let me select my notes first if we want to change anything. So Command A.
And okay, I was just seeing if it happened to be in order of, but it's not.
No,
so
I don't
won't
think it
even
is.
talk about it.
Yeah, are you talking about the order of the modes?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not. There doesn't seem to be a natural flow to this because I would think major, and then you would get into the minors, and then it's kind of like all over. By the way, I'm a sucker, ambient wise. Major, typically minor pentatonic, and have very minimal notes, like 2 or 3 notes per pattern, longer, slower evolving notes, and it's like it's kind of cheating, but it almost always feels good. We'll edit that out of the recording so they don't know our tricks. All right. Anywho, I would like
Modes.
to, pardon?
God, I was just going to add, as far as modes go, I kind of think of it, if you take your key and treat it like it's vanilla ice cream, and your modes are the sprinkles that change the flavor of it.
Yeah.
You can learn how the flavors are by name. You'll get what I'm talking about. You can throw the same 1-4-5 progression down over and over and over and change modes on top of it, and it's going to sound different every time.
But it's all
So,
related though, right?
Yes, but like I said, that's how you can teach it to yourself.
That's a great analogy, man. It's so simple.
visualization.
Yeah, it's so simple that you don't even have to have a degree. You don't have to be a genius to get that example. So I will, next time I'm making music, I'm going to think ice cream and sprinkles. All right. What's that?
Or donuts.
Or donuts. I am trying to eat as healthy as possible in this little quarantine. I've been cooking food or having leftovers every day. Haven't had any food out and about, so I feel pretty proud of myself.
That's too bad because I was just going to suggest eating your cereal with ice cream because cereal and ice cream is the best.
That sounds dangerous.
It's delicious.
Eat quinoa with chocolate milk.
Yeah.
All right. Tank is getting the boot. Nice to see you. Have a great night.
Tank eats some pretty weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like asparagus.
Okay.
Okay, my dogs like it too.
I don't think dogs should have like ice cream. I don't know. It's like processed sugary stuff, but
Yeah.
who knows? Anyway, we got about 20 minutes ish. And then what I wanted to do, I did an intro to Logic weeks ago, but I just dabbled with this very quickly. I wanted to show you, let me just mute this, and then I'm going to make one more track. We'll just choose any, Mellotron. I freaking love this thing. It's really, really tasty. There's probably higher end sample libraries that have 1 million Mellotron samples, but for free, this thing's pretty awesome. I will not need the library for this. I don't know if you guys know, but Mellotron used to be like an old keyboard that was tape loops. Like you hold down a note and it will play that note on a tape loop. So every note you play, every single one will initiate a tape loop, and you could hold it down, it'll just keep going. But the company has recently, in the past couple of years, started remanufacturing them, but using digital, but really high-end keyboards with every single sample that they ever recorded. So a little bit more reliable, but very high quality. Now, let's say that I am stuck on an idea, or like I'm just turning the computer on, and this is a quick little side note. I don't feel writer's block. Like I got stuck on, you saw it, I got stuck on the last example, but that's not writer's block. That's like, I'm not technically proficient right now to figure out the problem. I'll just come back to it. But if I turn on any piece of gear, whether it's hardware or software, I don't always have an idea. I just make something and then react to that idea. And it's sometimes the idea is not great, but I don't think writer's block is a real thing. It's like you might be feeling a lack of motivation. I definitely feel that in recent times. But here's an example of I don't have an idea, but I know I want to start with the Mellotron sound. MIDI effects. This is exclusively Logic Pro 10 or Pro X. They did not have all these features in 9. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I'll go chord trigger. I'll just play a note. Oops, got to open the darn keyboard. I am playing C2. This is the input note. And it's giving me that chord. It's like that right there. I don't even know, like, I don't have to know where I'm going. It's like that right there could be a chord change to start a song. So R for record. That had an awkward sense of timing. Let me undo the second loop. There feels, oh, you know what? I didn't do too much recording today. No, it's not too bad. I'll probably drop that down, but I'm not going to do too much more recording. Anyway, you guys get the idea though? It's like it records the note that you played, but that note is running through and you get chords out of it. We'll probably just tighten this up a little bit. I'll just press Q for quantize. It'll go 16th note, and we'll probably get rid of the overlap. Now, and actually the last note here, a little bit longer. But the cool thing about this is it's not just, okay, I'll just play a note. It's like, if, especially a few of you have some musical theory background, maybe you're stuck without a full-size keyboard. You only have your laptop, but you know that you want some intricate voice or style of chording. You have all sorts of stuff here. And if you wanted to get jazzy, nerdy, like let's get proggy, you have all of the single intervals, extended harmonies, all sorts of stuff. So I could record 2 or 3 notes and then be like, let's try major thirds or minor seventh, whatever. Let's just see what happens. So drastically different feels from the same exact notes. My personal favorite interval right there. Ugh. Sorry. Do you guys get the idea though? It's like regardless of what notes you're playing, it'll always give you those intervals. So kind of cool. There's still a little bit of lag right there. Anyway, not going to perfection there. Are you guys feeling okay though? Chord trigger, play one note and you generate chords. But what's really cool about this one, and this is something you can do in Ableton as well. I haven't even really messed with these. I don't know. Maybe we'll go cello. Holy Lord. Nope. That sounds dope. Maybe we'll put some reverb. I'm going on a tangent because I just hearing a sound. Chroma verb. We'll just go quick here. Mono to stereo. Now, here is an idea that we can combine multiple different MIDI effects into one chain. Just like I could put reverb and delay and EQ and compression for audio, I could have a chord trigger then running into an arpeggiator. So if I play a note right now, I'm just going, the screen's getting a little busy, but here's the signal flow. I play a note, any note, it goes into the chord generator, and then it will go into the arpeggiator. So one note can become real simple melodies. And this can get much busier. As a matter of fact, right now, I just have the major third. So we'll go back to, I don't know. I don't want to get super weird. Maybe we'll go multi-keyboard voicings, pop right hand. Do you guys see what's happening though? If I play a note with certain presets, it does not fall into the range. I think you can extend, well, you can extend it, but I think the only thing that's programmed is C3 through C5. So I'll just move my octave up here. So I play a note, it generates that chord, but then it's running through the arpeggiator, as I previously mentioned. Quick little tour of this, we have our rate. So if I wanted a specific rate, I usually like eighths or sixteenths, depending on the feel. But you got triplets, dotted, all sorts of fun stuff. Oops. Here, let's go up one more. There we go. Now this is the order. It's relatively self-explanatory. This would play lowest note to highest note, and then it loops back. This would descend. It would play the highest note and then drop down from there. This will ascend, then descend. Sometimes this will be called pendulum, like it'll swing from one end to the other and then return in the opposite direction. This will alternate. It'll do, I forget what it's called, converge. If I play 4 notes, you'll get a better idea. And let me turn off the octave range. Oh, I should, if I play 4 notes though, let me bypass this so you can hear it a little bit better. So it's alternating. It's like 1, 3, 2, 4, as opposed to going through in either direction. It's kind of staggering or alternating. I'll turn this back on. This is random. You could literally, it will not exactly repeat as random. And this is the order in which you play. So if you play like 2 low notes, then a high note, then another lower note, it's just following the order in which you play. What I like to do with this is just kick on latch mode and play something. Play a note or a chord. I like this one better, by the way. Oh, that was, sorry, that was when I actually, stop it. Anyway, that was a little weird, mind, like thinking out loud. When I liked it earlier when I turned this off, but I don't, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna turn this off. Sorry, can't make up my mind. Here's latch mode, and I'll just play in. So now, no hands, it's latching that chord, and then I can experiment, change the rate. If you did you guys all hear that? You can get, if I change the instrument, you can get video game sounds, chip tune sounds, you can get slot machine sounds. I should, instead of talk about it, I'll just give you a 10-second thing there. We'll go retro synth, and we'll just choose like a sharper lead sound. Leads. Not the best. That's really, really fast. So definitely experiment with your rate, and then I'll cover a few more things over here, and then I'll just do questions and answers. I'm going to switch back to the Mellotron, though. That's just a preference right now. We'll latch the chord, too. Turn this down a little bit. Now, the variation, if you listen, it's going to literally, if you read the manual, by the way, it'll give you a chart. Like when you choose 2, when you choose 3, this is changing the order of the pattern subtly. This is the starting order, but then this will change the pattern. I'm not going to cover all permutations, just experiment. We'll listen to a couple. That's not doing too much different because I'm in 1 octave. Can you guys still hear my voice right now? Check out the octave range. And then we just put maybe before the delay, or before the reverb, little delay. Yeah, we'll just do this, a simple delay. So very quickly, just a couple plugins, holding down a note or two, you get these kind of cool, like let's say you're working with a singer-songwriter or a band and they're like, we want something kind of atmospheric. It's like you could literally make stuff like this without super in-depth knowledge of, you know, it's, you don't have to buy fancy stuff. It's like just experiment with the tools you have and you get some cool sounds. Side note, I don't think this sounded amazing, but it sounds a lot different than if I turn all the plugins off and just hold down a note. So I just wanted to emphasize these are very, very powerful. The simplicity of them on the surface, but they go further. It's like pattern, options, note length. You could randomize your notes. You could have a certain velocity, but then randomize that. You can add swing to the arpeggiation. So you get some really, really interesting sounds. I'm going to show you that swing real quick, but it's not going to sound great with the Mellotron. I just have a feeling. I'll choose like a harp sound or something sharper. Orchestral, harp. There's only one. Dag nabbit. I'm still not used to using this mouse with this desk and this environment. Sorry. So harp and harp. I'm playing notes and nothing's happening. What happened? Trigger keys. Am I playing in the wrong? It's strangely. Oh, I think I'm just way higher. No? Okay, I have broken the machine. The chord trigger was off. Sometimes I'm special. So check out, there's still a little reverb and delay, but check out swing. No effects. So just that by itself, holding down a note or two, adding a little swing, randomizing the note length and velocity, it feels like a human being as opposed to a machine is generating this thing. Well, or maybe it feels like a nice hybrid of both, you know? So you have machine control and precision, but a little bit of randomization, a little bit of swing, it really opens it up musically. The delay is a bit much. I just chose a random preset with high feedback, but I hope you guys are getting some ideas. We'll try one more, maybe an half note flutter. And it's called flutter because it gives it more of a tape, detuning. The flutter rate and intensity gives it a little bit of wobble, which sounds pretty dope to my ears. So I just wanted to really kind of emphasize, well, we're kind of in the MIDI realm majority of the day, but definitely wanted to emphasize these, which some people will completely overlook. You can get a lot weirder. Here's one example, note repeat. Let me turn off the arpeggiator and the delay. I play one note, it repeats 3 times. It could repeat up to 99 times. The rate, 2 bars. I would press one note and I could probably make dinner, come back, and it would be finishing. That's a joke, but if you can go any of these, let's go 30-second notes. That's a little obnoxious. If you're like, why would I ever do that? Because you can, maybe for hi-hats or percussion, but also this, transpose. I will play the lowest note possible. And that's just reverb. That's kind of a cool sound effect that you could use for various things, not necessarily a musical project. Turn on tape delay, maybe some distortion, and it starts getting really weird. Go even faster. Let's go 64th notes, and I'll stop torturing you. But the idea is we're going to hear 100 notes, but each one will transpose one semitone, so it's constantly increasing. And if you choose synths or various non-acoustic sounds, you can get even more abstractions. Let's do one more example of the highest. So we'll just click on C7, and we will transpose -1. If you wanted to get even crazier, you could transpose whatever value. We'll go less repeats. Or obviously, you can get, if you did an octave, you'd run out of space pretty soon. Let me click up here. See how it just stops and starts clicking? But that's like, I don't know, like a detective, you just caught like a hint or like some little, I don't know. I'm running on coffee right now. Note repeat, another one. Just wanted to show you a couple of those, but definitely experiment. And you can again daisy chain those together, so you could have even more, complex results if you're patient. So I'm just going to remove those, and I think that concludes my kind of my little spiel for this wonderful Monday evening. Do you guys have any questions on step writing? Quantizing, MIDI effects? I kind of went on some weird tangents that were not like super logical flow, but any questions, comments?
Need to play with it a
my
while.
You really just need to play with it for a while. Seriously, like some of you guys have the ability of recording stuff in real time, like intricate chord changes, funky bass lines. Me, I just have to use the equipment to get a good result because I'm not from a keyboard background. The skill is getting better, but with this, I can't this does not feel musical. So if you learn the tools and you like flip the script a little bit, you can get some unique results that you might not ever play by hand, but that might be a beneficial flavor to bring to certain sessions, you know, or just for your own songs, you know. But yeah, that's the bottom line with any of this stuff. If you don't use it, you're not going to get good at it. That's like Captain Obvious, but I don't know. It's like Netflix or Logic. It's like which one's more productive? Probably Logic. And down the road, this could pay some bills, you know? So any other, that's a good point. I agree 100%, but I don't agree about the chocolate milk kimchi thing. Yeah, that is unnecessary. All right.
That was not kimchi. That was quinoa.
Quinoa, same thing. It's all the same.
It's grain. What is cereal? It's grain.
I'm just playing.
Can you explain a little bit more about modulation? Like in our when we took the proficiency for the first time, you had us do like
Oh
writing in
yeah.
modulation.
Yeah, I'm
I was
bummed that
confused about that at the time. So
no, I'm actually bummed that I didn't cover that. It kind of skipped my mind. I'll go back to this little deep synth bass thing. Now, the trick is, I don't know. I factually would not be able to tell you what modulation does for this particular plugin on this preset. What it offers is change of timbre, change of the sound. Modulation is not music theory modulation. That's a very easy one to define. But what I can do is just draw it in and I'll explain, okay, this is what I'm hearing. But if I switch it to another preset, the same exact modulation could have a radically different result. I actually might want to choose, I'm better at explaining this with RetroSynth.
Isn't it instrument dependent?
It's instrument and preset dependent. So
Yeah.
I'll choose a preset. Hello, Mo's dog. I really miss dogs. Can I pet him right now?
oh, you have two different dogs. That's amazing.
good boy? Is it a girl or a
Yeah,
boy?
they're both great dogs. Girl. This is Pepper.
Hello, Pepper.
And
She's
most of all,
The
adorable.
other one's Salt.
Scratch.
Is it Salt and Peppa, like the 90s hip hop group?
I wish. The other one's Bailey,
Oh, no. Change her name. You have full permission. She does not care.
but she has the color of Bailey's and cream. So
Is amber the color of her energy? I couldn't resist. It's been a long time. Every time it hits 311, I'm like, oh,
Whoa.
whoa. Now check this out. And we're back to finish it off strong. That was Jules, right? To clarify and Tank added this in, it's instrument and preset specific. I don't know unless I made the sound from scratch. I can program it to do something. What we'll do here is we'll do a lead sound and I'll just start at the top. Now what I'm going to do is open up the piano roll, option double click, and this can be moved slightly off to the side, and I'm going to press A for automation. Or we can click on this icon upstairs. And then down below, we get this additional lane. And right now it's just the velocity, as you can see, note velocity. I can move all of the velocities up or down, or I can click on, if I click away to deselect, I can now modify my velocities, which is really nice. But down here, let me reset that. Boom. I can actually access modulation right there. And this, you come from a keyboard background, so if you ever use a MIDI controller, you always have a mod wheel. If I play in anything and I move the mod wheel, I would actually see the curve right here. But without the modulation wheel accessible, I could draw stuff in. So I'll click in anywhere and I get 53. That's fine. Let's just say that I want to end up, maybe at the end of these notes, I want it to be relatively noticeable, but not maximum. What I'm going to do is now drag this over. Do you guys see what's happening? So only the last two notes of this phrase will receive modulation. And I'm just clicking as many times as I want to create these points. I'm just undoing that one and I'll drop it like it's got. So what I'm going to do is like the tail end of each phrase, only the last couple notes will receive this treatment. And it might not be precise, but I'm just going for a quick, a quick example. And then what we'll do is we'll go through a couple presets. We'll just leave it there. So we'll hear 2 changes. Oh my Lord, get out of my life. There was a slight introduction of vibrato there. That opened the filter. These are quick notes, but if I open these up, you know what I'll do? I'll grab these 2 notes. Actually, this last one. Oh, come on. Usually this would be larger. So check out this last note. You're going to hear... See how I got a little brighter? Now, again, though, I'm just listening and going off of my knowledge of synths, but there's a cool little flute with a little vibrato. The most common parameters will be vibrato and filter manipulation. But I'll end on this. Every plugin, if you learn the plugin, and I'll factually admit, I don't know every Logic plugin in and out, but this one's a really easy one. Settings. I can map, and actually as I scroll through different presets, I can see what it's doing. Well, most of these are filter cutoff, but I could go to any, I actually like that little flute thing. No. Yeah. So the modulation wheel right now, this is a positive influence and this would be a negative. I'll start with the positive and I'll say instead of that, I'm going to go for the vibrato rate. Did you hear it? The vibrato is actually, let me see if I can increase the obviousness of it. And let me slow it down a little bit. This is not synced. I'm forgetting how to do this. There we go. So it's going to be, you'll hear it. Wait a minute, was I vibrato? Okay, I'm a dingus. Here's my vibrato. What's happening is, unfortunately, it doesn't show you the change, but it will actually speed this up or slow it down based on what I've told it to do right here. We'll go for a simpler example, filter cutoff. So if I close the filter, and this is a positive influence, when this goes up here, it's almost as if I'm doing this, but you don't see the thing move, unfortunately. I accidentally turned the click on. Are you guys hearing how soft it is? Let's actually go one more example. We'll go bright, but when the modulation increases, the filter cutoff will decrease. Not every synth will allow, well, most now will allow positive or negative, but with like hardware, usually it's like I turn the wheel, modulation wheel, and it increases. It cannot decrease. So it's a little bit softer. I could exaggerate that greatly by going here. So to summarize, I couldn't tell you what modulation is until I've actually opened up the device and messed around with it a little bit. The bottom line, don't stress and think that you have to memorize each preset and what modulation does. Especially if you're coming from a musical standpoint, just literally play a preset, move the wheel, and again, you'll hear filter change. It'll get brighter or softer. You'll hear the vibrato intensity increase or the speed of the vibrato change. And those are the most common things that I could expect. Does that help you out?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, and the best way is just to mess around. Do you have a MIDI keyboard?
Yes, I do.
If somebody out there does not, you guys see modulation? I could play a chord or a note. Why is that not working? Is it because of this? Oh, I'm in the lowest octave, that's why. And you can just click on these. Well, now it's actually doing, okay, so I can go like this. Even if you don't have a wheel, you could just use your numbers as well, 3 through 8 on the keyboard. So yeah, that's a good way just to experiment, kind of learn at your own pace. And again, don't try to memorize this stuff. Just go with the feel of it. That's the most important thing. You guys, it's been fun, but it's 8:02. Any questions before we wrap this up? Nada? Okay. Did everybody learn it?
Are you going to do another Logic one?
I'll probably do another Logic one, but I think where I'll go is a little bit more on the audio side. Like I'll record some stuff in. I'll show you basic editing, but maybe I'll go with a little bit more of a plan. Like I'm going to start recording and I'll pick a key and try to stick to that. So it's like I didn't hit that speed bump that I did. But where I could go is just this, but more advanced. I didn't cover track stacks. Like you could have 2 or more melodies or 10 drum tracks, and you can fold them into one, and you can EQ and compress those together. There's saving presets. Like I might create a really good sound today. I might want to use it in a year. Like I didn't cover a lot of stuff because there wasn't like one particular. I'm trying to stop the share, by the way, so I can see you guys. So there's a lot that I could cover, but I was just kind of improvising and hopefully giving you some stuff to mess around with, you know? But yeah, if there's going to be I'll have at least a few more classes in the next couple weeks. So just keep your eyes posted on Crass Connect. And if you guys see a class coming up and you would like to have something covered, even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes, I'll sneak it in, you know? So keep that in mind. If you see nothing scheduled for me except for Pro Tools on the weekend right now, but in the next 2 weeks, there'll be a few things booked. So when you see it on the calendar, shoot me a message if you want to see anything.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd like to see some tempo, how to do tempo changes in Logic.
Manual, just like I want to change tempo real quick.
Automate it.
Yeah, I'll show you in 10 seconds. Really, it's globals up here, or here, let me close the keyboard.
We
So
can wait till
G-
next time. It's okay.
Well, this is going to take 10 seconds for you to start experimenting,
Okay.
and then I'll show you more variations. You can also import. You could record guitar or your vocal, like beatboxing, and you could have it analyze. It's almost like Beat Detective in Pro Tools. So they've definitely beefed up the Beat Detective. No, they've beefed up the tempo functions. When you open up your globals here, G or click here, tempo should be there. And then literally, it's like click.
You're not sharing.
Dang it. Note to self, never stop sharing. Note to self, don't stop believing. Share screen. All right. So undo, undo. I have to click back on Logic. Undo, undo. And then this is what it would look like standard. Press G for globals or click on this icon here. If you hover, it'll say show or hide global tracks. Open. This is where you can add arrangement, like intro, verse. You could have markers, time signature changes, but tempo is what you're looking for. Let's go at this exact moment. So we're going to be 80, and then we'll go to double time. So I'm just clicking just like you saw in modulation. I'm just clicking and dragging up. Now it seems a little weird because we don't have a huge lane, but you can open this up. And I think that we can drag this. No, it's a little bit whack, I'll be honest. There we go. So if you were doing just tempo, you can get a little bit better view here, and we'll play it. Oh, I have it soloed. This is great because anywhere in the session, you can unsolo whatever's soloed. That's this quick intro. You can mess around with that until the next class, but check this out. If you want it gradual, you click on that dot and you could have it ramp up as opposed to instantly change. That's all you need to know to get started with. So experiment with that. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email and then I can address it with you one-on-one, or I could sneak it into the next class. Cool.
I
Great.
just wanted to add up there where you got the 80 and keep. There
right.
you can pull down, and there's variations on tempo that I would like to hit sometime.
Yeah, these I'm still learning, like Adapt Project Tempo. If I imported a Logic loop at a different tempo, it would actually follow. This, if I imported let's say the loop is at 90, it would adapt 90 to my 80. But this, it would actually, let's say I have a song started, but I want a different drum loop, and it's a little faster. It actually will flex time stretch stuff. So it's actually pretty awesome. This one, I don't know, honestly. I'm still learning this, though. That's definitely something we could focus on.
Yeah.
Cool. Righteous. Well, you guys, it's 8:07. I need to cook some Thai food. That's what's on but not with the chocolate milk stuff. Get out of here, all right? No sprinkles either, all right? Well, there'll be some chili pepper sprinkles. Anyway, it's been really fun. Even though there was a little looser structure to this one, I hope that at least a few of these things you could internalize and start, working on the next couple of days just to spice up your workflow. So, yeah, if you stumble across any cool examples or good uses of what I've shown, definitely feel free to send an example. That'd be cool. So yeah, I wish you guys a wonderful night, and then definitely keep in touch regarding Logic or Pro Tools or Ableton. All right.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you guys for your time. We lost a few, but the real troopers are still here, and I'm here with you. All right.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks
That
so
was great.
much.
No problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for showing up, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Oh, put your name in the chat if you have not signed out. I don't know if they're actually caring about signing out, but I will say, I'm going to stop the share and then I'll save that chat. Word. Stop share. Oh. All right, you guys, in about 10 seconds, I'm going to boot you out, all right? So I'm going to save the chat. You guys enjoy your evening. Thanks again. Peace.